Hey everyone, how's it going? It's the Detroit Game Series and it's June 27th. We're back for episode 12 and it's been a couple of
June
weeks.
27th.
Sorry, I mean
It's
it's
July 1st.
it's July 1st. I kept thinking,
Where have you been the last 5 days, bro? Is this why I never see you anymore?
I'm not living in a linear timeline at
What
this
up,
point.
everyone? This is Shamir. I'm talking to a past self of Arjun.
Origins Ghost.
But it's July 1st. I know we're a week late. I just kind of felt like there wasn't as much stuff to talk about, and also this is just kind of a weird time for us because
we're in between game releases, launches,
new. There was just like a massive burst of gaming news, and I feel like now things have been kind of quieter. I haven't been gaming as much, God forbid I've actually been getting outside the house more, enjoying the sun.
The console wars are dead.
Yeah,
after you guys have heard.
For a while, so enjoying the pool. And I'm actually going to be on vacation. I'm heading over to Europe this weekend. So I was thinking, okay, I kind of want to stage it, so I'm doing one right before I leave, and then one right when I get back. Yeah. So,
and I'm supposed to be in San Diego right now, but that trip got canceled, so I'm just kind of in limbo at the moment.
Yeah.
So my plans have been all over the place, but that's caused a lot of shifts in our schedules.
Yeah, which I guess it does make me kind of wonder. I feel like a lot of games don't necessarily really release in the summer.
Yeah.
So is it like a chicken and the egg situation? Like, do people just know people aren't going to be gaming in the summer and they don't release stuff?
Yes.
Or is it more like because nothing is out, no one's gaming?
I mean, it's a bit of both. Like 10 years ago, I would say everyone knew the time to release games were always during the holiday. Even when you had a new console launch, which made most sense. But now everyone has changed the expectations and defied that. So Nintendo releasing a console in the summer. Yeah. We have new releases like Death Stranding and Donkey Kong in the summer. Yeah. Like, it's just weird to see this because 10 years ago, this was not the case.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I just got through this high of just there were so many games that came out like February, March, and especially April, right? And then even into May, April and May was crazy. So to me, it just seemed kind of slow. And I guess we were going to talk about this eventually, but I'm just not a big Death Stranding guy. So even though that's
on the beach,
even though that's like the big game right now, and you have been really trying to convince me to buy it.
It's got a 90+ open credit.
I know. And then I was like, okay, if it gets over 90, maybe I'll buy it. But
maybe he'll play a 60 Metacritic game when Hellblade Senua, but he won't touch a 90.
I think that was like 80.
No, that game was horrible.
I actually think Hellblade 2 was 80 on OpenCritic.
I'm just going to check.
You can look it up, but I don't know. I guess for me, I get really into the hype of what everyone else is saying is 81. Really good. 81. I told you, bro.
Either way, it's asking.
I liked it. But I don't know. I get into the hype of these games that I'm not going to be interested in, but everyone else keeps talking about them. So I'm like, okay, I got to jump on the bandwagon. That's like the hot thing to play.
You want to be part of the conversation. And I feel like because it's Hideo, he has some cachet, but that's a game worth playing. People are saying it's very reminiscent to Metal Gear Solid 5.
But I didn't like Metal Gear Solid 5. I think we've talked about it. The only Metal Gear I liked was 4.
Maybe from a gameplay perspective though, because the story's still going to be as unique as he always makes games to be. And I think the first one, everyone was lost on Death Stranding 1. So I feel like if they flesh this out a little better to make the story, the pacing better.
So my problem with why I don't want to get into Death Stranding 2 is I think it's a really interesting setting. I don't like the way Hideo Kojima does storytelling because I think some people make something that's really dense, and the reason you're playing is so you can finally understand what's going on. And so you're just sitting there because you're like, okay, I'm invested, and it's really interesting and curious, and I just want it to make sense.
Yeah, that's not...
And for me, I don't really like that type of storytelling as much. Because I remember when I was playing Death Stranding 1, I was like, oh my God, I'm so lost. The way he's describing everything makes no sense. Order. It's out of order. And the only reason I'm playing is because this is such a fascinating world. I want to understand why the rain is aging people. I want to understand these things. So that was the hook for me.
I think part of it is his creativity, yes. But his games are meant to be played more than once to a degree. That's why he made that director's cut for Death Stranding 1. And he also enhanced the gameplay on top of it. So it kind of it was okay, cool. You made this newer version. People got to replay the story, and it's the definitive version. I feel like with Death Stranding 2, I'm not saying they're going to have a director's cut, but that story is meant to be rewatched a couple of times. It's like going to a cult classic and saying, "Hey, I gotta watch that 3 or 4 times because it was
Yeah.
so dense and unique."
So
Like,
I get
gotta
that, and
dissect
I
it.
think this is a hot take, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of crap for this, but I just think it's kind of pretentious, and it's just like not my way of doing stuff because. Like okay, so when I look at writers I'm trying to emulate, like I was reading On Writer by Stephen King, right? And he was like, the best way of saying something is just saying it simply. And I think a lot of times like people just get caught up in like making it flashy or like sound good or this or that, but sometimes you don't have to make things so dense, like what's wrong if like instead of giving me like all of what I need 90% of the game, and actually not even all of what I need because really I have to play it 2 or 3 times to get it. So I guess
Well,
maybe that's just me. Like
what
I'm
I
not someone who also likes the storytelling of Elden Ring and Bloodborne and stuff like that. I don't like these stories where I have to piece it all together and
yeah,
then
where the lore is all over the
yeah,
place.
and like Destiny, like where you have to argue, like and look for people who are into that. I get it. Like there's so much catalog of videos you can go through and pour over it. There's a lot of fun to it,
Yeah.
but I like more of the like the Sony cinematic style of God of War or Last of Us, where it's a good story that's well told, but there's still some things about it that'll make me think about life, right?
Sure. I mean, I think with Death Stranding, what I'll say this, I'll give credit to Hideo, is like he came up not only with a new IP, and this was after being like leaving, a Konami. He created such a big world that he was able to spawn a sequel. That doesn't
Which is
happen
insane.
often. And I feel like if you had that much to tell, yeah, that means maybe you didn't give us the direct, hey, here's what the story is about. But I think I'm okay with that. I'm going to play the second one. I didn't really play the first one. I watched it. But the second one looks like it's given a lot of quality of life
Yeah, that's
improvements.
what everyone was saying. Like, I think even the IGN reviewer was saying like the Death Stranding one was like a 7 out of 10 for me, and like the new one is like a 9 out of 10,
Yeah.
right? So I love that improvement. I love the fact that he's able to make something that's very unique and artistic and all those things. But at its core, I just don't like the game. Like I remember all those hours I spent delivering boxes, and it just was not fun for me.
So that's what's changed in this game is that in between missions now, you have a lot more camp bases where you're fighting enemies.
Which is fine, but it's like, why should? And this is again my opinion. Like, even if I'm getting like more action that I would like, I still have to play things I don't want to play. And it's like if the core of the game play is primarily moving boxes around, and I don't like that. Like the fact that now you're giving me a little bit of jelly to make it taste better. Like, all right, but still, that doesn't mean that the core is something I enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of that stuff I mentioned is optional too. So it's not like you have to play that way. It's just it gives more options. And the critique that the game had was that there wasn't enough action. Like story wise, again, I think Death Stranding is a game I would have watched, not played. And this game looks like I would rather play now than watch. So I don't know. I'll remains to be
Try
seen.
it out. Maybe it'll fit for you. I mean, for me, I've just never been into like the whole survival sim. Like even though Death Stranding is obviously not a survival sim, like it's just not my cup of tea. Like
It's
for me, I like shooters, RPGs, and action adventures.
yeah.
And
This
and
was.
and for me, I think with Death Stranding Run, I convinced myself that I would like it, and then I really tried, and then I was like, no, I just
I mean,
can't.
I didn't even play the first one. I just knew watching the gameplay in the first one when it came out. Like, oh, this isn't for me. Like, I'm not going to play it. But this is in between what you said. This is espionage slash
Which I
action.
don't like. I really don't like
And
heavy core
I
espionage.
said the same thing until I played Metal Gear Solid 4, and I said, fuck, I actually like this game.
The only reason I like Metal Gear Solid 4 is because I got a grenade launcher and I just
Sure,
destroyed
sure. You
everyone
did
with
more
that.
action than espionage, but I appreciated that. Like there was different ways to play that game, and it didn't always force me to do it that way. It wasn't like slowing me down. It was this is the primary way, but if you want to do the secondary way, you can also run and gun and just blast through it too.
So, okay, maybe this is just a weird thing. I wonder if anyone else games like this. So if you do, let us know. But when I play stealth games, I purposely try and create as much havoc as I
I'm
can
sure people do
because then
that.
it makes the action like 10 times harder.
Yeah,
Because you're not supposed to be
you're
able to do
not,
that, right?
but that's not the point. See, in
So then
this
it's like I
game,
went from normal mode to like veteran mode.
sure, but that's probably not what this game is. It seems like it's both in parallel. So you can now upgrade the exoskeleton suit, so you can run like a madman in Death Stranding 2, and you can purely play it as an action game, and it's meant to be played that way. Or you can just always stealth and not fight anyone. They actually give you two parallel paths. So what you're saying is different. hey, it's not really meant to be this way, but we gave you an option, and now it makes things difficult.
But I can't just play the whole game as a shooter. I still have to deliver packages.
No, that's on top of what's been built at the core, at the foundation. So the foundation being you're delivering packages regardless. Now you have two additional layers on top
of how you can do it.
Yeah,
you
how
can
you can
either
do
be
it.
stealthy or action.
Yeah.
So it's like the core of the game is being an Amazon worker.
Yes.
But on top of it, you can approach the game like
Yes,
Metal Gear
you
Solid.
only get paid minimum wage in this game.
So I kind of feel like what essentially happened, and maybe people who have played the game can sound in, you know, they just took the elements of Metal Gear Solid that
Yeah.
worked well, and
Actually-
then they mixed it in to the elements of Death Stranding 2,
I'm seeing a
so
lot of
people
people-
didn't, to balance it
Yeah,
out.
I'm seeing a lot of people calling this game Metal Gear Solid 6, like legit, and I could understand that. Like it's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the evolution of what 5 probably
Did you
was
like
trying to-
5 though?
I mean, I didn't beat it, so I thought it was okay. I didn't like it as much as 4. I liked 4 the best.
I really didn't like 5. I just remember the beginning was so jarring,
Yeah, it was
and
so
then I was
jarring.
just like, I can't get into this. This is just way too jarring. And it's one thing if it's weird. Like I like weird. Like I liked High on Life. That's a
Yeah.
super weird game, but for some reason, some of those games are just too jarring. So we'll see. I mean, right now I'm holding off on buying Death Stranding, and I guess this goes into another point. I feel like my value proposition has really changed, and I do kind of blame Game Pass for it, right? Because like in this year, like if I'm playing bangers like Doom
No,
and
dude.
Clair Obscur, right? And to me, I think about it as a banger, but I know a lot of people disagree. But still, you know, full price games,
Yeah.
right? Then do I really want to pay 70 to 80 bucks for a game that I might not like, right?
Yeah.
And so it just kind of changes the whole value proposition. Like for me, if Death Stranding 2, if I could, you know, wait and buy it on sale when it's like $39.99,
Well,
then maybe I'll get it.
see, but now this is a psychological thing for you because you're saying a game that's full price should be a banger. That's what you just said, but it's on Game Pass. But it's the same way for.
So my point is not like a game full price has to be a banger. My point is if it's a game I'm unsure about, I'm too scared to dip my feet in
Yeah.
and potentially be let down because then it's a bigger time like money commitment and I'll feel bad about it. You know,
of course.
For instance,
But-
like I just bought Metaphor, I bought Dragon's Dogma, I bought Stellar Blade, which were all games that were really hyped. I didn't like any of them.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
fair.
now I'm like, okay.
But that's the risk you take whenever you buy a game, right? If you haven't played it, regardless of the reviews, because all those games you talked about had pretty decent reviews. What I'm saying is that from a psychological standpoint, for a PlayStation consumer, they say, "Oh, Death Stranding 2, full price game. I know that's also going to be a banger, and I'm going to pay for it, then play it on Game Pass because if it's on Game Pass, it's devalued in some way."
I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, the argument is that, well, if Sony is feeling confident enough to charge full price on this, then they really trust the game.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that doesn't always turn out.
Yeah, but it's the same for the game.
Concord.
It's the same for the, yeah, but it's this. Well, Concord wasn't a full price game. That's the
Wasn't?
thing. It was a $40.
I think Rise of the Ronin.
Yeah, but that was a second party collab. So again, quality control there. Like again, the way I look at Game Pass is you liked Avowed a lot, and that kind of fit your style of games. But that didn't really fit for me, and I wasn't even interested. Even though it was on Game Pass, and I have Game Pass. I have Game Pass Ultimate. I'm like, I still
Okay,
don't
but
touch
if Avowed was a full price game, would you have bought it?
no,
So,
but again, that's just I already. If it was on Game Pass too, I still wouldn't have touched it. And I haven't.
so either way, you wouldn't have been interested.
Yeah.
But for me, I think especially like as I've gotten older, I've started to get a better sense of like, hey, I don't like this, but I'm not normally into this, but I'm gonna try it because I think I could get into it, right? And I would be surprised. Like Astrobot, I was like, I don't know if this is really for me, you know,
Yeah.
but I think I might like it because I liked Super Mario Wonder, so I bought it, I played it, and I was like, oh my god, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like this changed my mind, right? But then other games, like I'll be like, okay, I don't know if this is for me. Like that's how I felt about Metaphor after I played Persona, because Persona is not for me. I really didn't like all the stats and talking to people and grinding in that way is boring to me. But then I was like, okay, everyone's saying it's like a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Bought it, played like 5-10 hours, couldn't get into it. And I think for me, the one that really like made it crystal clear to me was like Dragon's Dogma. Like I knew from the second I saw all those videos, I was like, literally the part of video games I hate the most when it's RPGs is when you get lost and you just have things pop up.
Yeah, and I hate
And
that too.
I don't like that. Like I literally I just go straight to what needs to be done. Like I told you, I played Oblivion. I would literally fast travel to where I wanted to go. I
Yeah.
don't want to walk there and
Yeah.
discover things. I know people are into that, right? And obviously, it's one of the most successful games are like that. That's not me, right? Like I'm really into just narratives and characters and how those characters grow.
Yeah.
Like for me, I want to play games as if it's an interactive movie, right?
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, but Dragon's Dogma, the graphics look good. Everyone was saying it's amazing. I tried it, really gave it a chance, and just I felt like I wasted my time and money there. So that's why now I'm
Well,
like, I've been burnt a lot last year, and it's Stellar Blade. Oh God, you know how I felt about that one.
yeah.
So I just feel like I've been burnt a lot this year. So I'm just kind of like,
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, for us, still, it's a value proposition thing. We're still like, just for those that don't know, we're still middle class people. So our time is also important, but so is our money. We still, I am hesitant to put in a lot of money and sink into something that I'm not
yeah,
confident about. But if I was rich and I could
yeah.
afford a
If it
lot of
didn't matter,
shit,
yeah.
I'd probably buy even about. And even though I wouldn't play it, I'd be like, fuck it, because I want to own the games because people are talking about it.
Yeah. But
So
I don't know if this is YouTube, but then I get like a guilt factor. I don't know
yeah,
if
that's
rich people
definitely,
don't have that, but then like I just have this
they
guilt
don't.
factor because I'm just like, oh man, there's all these games and
And
I
I
spent this
can't
money on
play
it.
it.
I'm not going to play it,
Yeah.
and then it's like I start forcing myself to play something that
Yeah.
I'm not enjoying, and then
Yeah.
like
I
my
like
wife,
that a lot.
my wife will sit next to me and she's like, why are you playing this when you're
Because
clearly
it's
not having
it's the
fun?
principle.
And I'm like, it's
It's
the
it's the
principle.
principle of beating
You
a game you
wouldn't
paid for. Yeah,
understand.
yeah, like it's the principle of beating a game you paid for, or you started, even if it was on Game Pass, because you're still paying for
So,
it somewhere.
so I think with that, like, because I'm unsure, like, I don't want to pay full price for it. But if it was like pretty cheap, and I had nothing else really that I was playing, like it was a quiet month, I might pick it up.
Like, wait 4 years, I'll go on sale. I'll just be honest.
Who knows, man? But I mean, I guess Sony games do go on sale.
Yeah, they
Like,
always go
they're
on
not
sale.
like Nintendo.
Yeah, they're
so.
not like Nintendo. So,
But I mean, hats off to them, and I think, it's kind of funny timing because I feel like in the PlayStation community, I've been hearing a lot of people very critical about the PS5, and they're like, "Oh my God, how are we already talking about the PS6? There's really been no bangers that have come out, and what's the point of me upgrading my PS5 because I'm not really getting anything that's showing off the power of the PS5." And it's just like timing wise, like I feel like that conversation really crescendoed like a week or two before Death Stranding 2 came out,
yeah,
right? And it's like now Death Stranding 2 comes out and it looks absolutely amazing, right? And they're
Yeah.
really
looks like a
using
next gen game.
they're really
Or
using the
current
PS5's engine, and obviously this is not something that could ever be done on the PS4, right?
Yeah.
So I just thought that was funny timing. But I guess what do you think about that? Like kind of that feedback where a lot of people who have PS4s, they're like, hey, we're 5 years now into the PS5, right? Just about, right? Just about. And they look at all of the big Sony games have come out, and I would say the best ones have all also been on the PS4. They're like, yeah, it was really worth the upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it wasn't worth the upgrade. I think the upgrade was necessitated. But what I say is it's too early. I think we have this arbitrary cycle of upgrading every 7 years, and these OEMs have decided 7 years is when we should upgrade to a new console or iterate. I think for PlayStation 5 to 6 specifically, I think 7 years is not enough time. It's too soon
Yeah,
because
I think they're definitely going to do 2028.
yeah, and I here's where I look at it. I think, and Sony said this specifically last week at their little press event. This was just really funny. They're relying on PS4 owners to carry them through into PS6. So what does that mean? They're still creating games like third-party games also still exist for PS4. The new Call of Duty game that's coming out is still going to be on PS4.
But the thing
That
is, like,
carries.
but why is this generation different? Because I feel like people adopted the PS3 and the 360 relatively quickly, and the PS4 and the Xbox One relatively quickly. But people are just not really adopting the PS5 in the same way. I mean, people are obviously buying them, right? Like PS5 is selling very well.
It is. I think it's just we're in a different point. Like our economy and inflation necessitates people to not want to spend as much
But like
money.
2008 crisis, right? Like it's not like we haven't had hard times before.
I think like PlayStation 3 really hit its stride towards the end of its life cycle. So that was probably 2010 to 13
Yeah.
after the recession. And I think right now people are like, we don't have much money to spend. And I think people are going with the mobile platform with Nintendo and then sticking with their PS4. And I think most of the monthly active users on PlayStation Plus are on PS4, actually. I think. I would have to look the numbers back up.
So I guess I was just thinking, I mean...
Especially when you have a soccer game and the best shooter game always on PS4 every year. Like this.
So I guess I was just thinking about it. Like, I was wondering, A, is it related to the fact that we're not having a massive graphical jump, right? Because
That's
You
the
know, I
other
think one of
reason.
the big things is okay, if we're really just jumping from like 30 frames per second at like, 800p
Yeah,
to
to
like 60
60,
frames per
1080.
second at 1080p, but everything is being super
Well,
sampled anyway,
yeah, because
right?
the scaling
The
techniques are still
scaling
gonna.
tech, so then people are
Yeah,
like, is it really
yeah.
worth
So
it?
so PS3 to 4 was actually still a substantial jump, right? So you still saw like, hey, better pixel count, better polygons, looks more dense. It looks better. When I look from 4 to 5, like sometimes it's like other than a handful like Demon Souls. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, stands up. Returnal stands up. That's it.
And the thing is, like, PS4 was kind of like punching above its weight, right? Because
Yeah,
even early on, like, I thought Order
looks
1886 looked
amazing.
fantastic.
Last of
Uncharted
Us,
4 looked
Uncharted 4 looks
fantastic.
so good.
Horizon looked fantastic.
Horizon
And I
looks
mean, it
good.
goes to show
God of
you,
War,
yeah, I mean, Horizon Forbidden West was able to run
yeah.
on PS4,
Ratchet and Clank,
right? Well, I don't think the new one was on PS4. It was only on PS5.
the 2016 one.
Oh, yeah, the
That
26 one.
looked so
That
good.
looked
Looked like
great.
a Pixar movie.
So I guess like it has been kind of disappointing, like in terms of graphics, and I think one of the big changes has been okay, you don't really have to deal with loading screens, which is
Sure.
nice, but now you still have to download like 100 and 150
Yeah.
gigabytes of massive games.
Yeah.
So like, how much better are we?
Well, not really,
right?
because most people are used to loading screens for the last 30 years. Like, even on the older,
Yeah.
like, that was just a thing you got used to.
Right, and like actually was an opportunity to go use the bathroom
Yeah.
or like do something
Read
else
tips.
or yeah. So I mean, it did really suck for some games, but it wasn't like the worst thing. And I guess where I'm getting at is in my mind, I can see like big changes that happen with each generation, right? Like, from PS1 to PS2, we're getting more 3D. Then
Yeah.
PS3, man, like the texture quality or the resolution,
Yeah.
really you saw that improvement. PS4, I would argue that really the open world game really came into effect because now you're able to have a lot bigger,
Yeah.
game worlds. But in the PS5,
It was really like,
what have you had? Like you've had more of like an evolution of like how large and how
was more-
good open world games can look.
It wasn't even that. It was like more efficiency gains. So compression and decompression of data and audio. Those two things like grew exponentially. But you know what? While audio is like a really big thing in games, and while decompression and compression of data is a big thing because you see less loading screens and better, like what's it called, distance to. Why am I forgetting this already? But
like
the way
LOD?
not even LOD, but how assets are being streamed. Like me as a gamer, I care more about the artistic vision. So when I look at a Nintendo game that doesn't do some of that shit, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me.
I
It
mean,
speaks more
For
to
instance,
me.
like Donkey Kong Bonanza, like blew my mind. Like when I
Yeah.
was looking at, oh my god, like you went from Tears of the
Draw
Kingdom.
distance is what I was thinking.
Draw distance. So you went from Tears of the Kingdom, right? Which to me was pretty amazing for the Switch, right? Just like how the physics engine was just amazing, right? And what you could accomplish with that. And now you go to Donkey Kong Bonanza, and I'm like, okay, I can just by watching like a preview of the game,
Sure.
I can see why this would not run on Switch One.
Agreed.
Right?
100%.
And I'm just like, oh my god, you can literally just destroy your way into like the subterranean
Yeah.
level. That's insane.
Yeah, but again, while I look at that as a great thing to have as an improvement, again, efficiency gain, I look at Breath of the Wild, and that was a game that came out 2 generations ago on the Wii
They're
U.
amazing, yeah. So I get what you're saying. Like we're getting less and less like advancement,
Yeah.
right? But I guess I do have to give Nintendo credit. Like they were able to take their advancement and show you how it can be relevant,
Yeah.
right? Like okay, we have more prowess,
Yeah.
and so because of that, now you can do destruction in a Nintendo game that you were never able to do.
Maybe we can.
You were able to have more players in Mario Kart than you were able to do. I get that. But now when I look at the PS5, like what did Ratchet and Clank and Returnal really do that others couldn't? Okay, now
particle effects and
it was like
loading
so
right
the
away.
big thing was like, okay, you're not dealing with loading screens, so now you can use the Rift to go from one world to another, right? And I was like, okay, that's cool. But also, I played Titanfall 2, and that was one of the abilities you had.
Yeah.
Now, of course, like the ability was way more complex in Ratchet and Clank, right?
Sure.
And well developed, but it didn't blow me away in the same way.
Well, tell me this. Okay, instant loading screen and ratcheting up Rift Apart, whatever it's called. You add a 5-second load screen, maybe even 10, maybe even 15 seconds, and you put it on the PS4. Would you still have enjoyed the game on the PS4?
Yeah, I would.
That's my point.
I would, yeah.
That's
so
what people are saying.
Everything to me feels like icing on top of the cake.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like I'm getting a cake. And so I guess I'll pivot a little bit. Like the games that now are coming at the end of the generation, Now I'm like, oh man, right? So like when
Yeah.
I saw Grand Theft Auto 6, I was like,
That looks like a
oh my
generational game.
god. I was like, that looks
Yeah,
insane.
yeah.
I was like, this is
And
what you need to buy a PS5 and an
yeah,
Xbox
and
for.
let's make a little comparison here. Death Stranding 2 looks so good that you could compare that to almost a GTA's
Yeah.
graphics in a sense. You're like, wow, like
So
that's
so now we get all full circle because I think I got distracted, but thanks for reminding me. But I brought up Death Stranding for a reason because it's like now we're actually starting to
see
see
it.
that, oh my god, now it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if, and I can understand why they didn't do it, but it's the Decima engine.
Yeah.
If you were making Horizon Forbidden West and you really just wanted to, make it PS5 only, I have a feeling you could have really knocked it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's speculation. We're just speculating, but
yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the God of War to God of War Ragnarok switch, where it was. Wait, no, Ragnarok also came out on PS4, right?
also
Like,
so I was thinking about this the other day. Let's think about, and you can pull it up if you want, but these are just the ones I remember. So forgive us if we forget any, but these are the PS5 only games I remember, right? So Demon Souls remake, right?
Remake.
Then you have Ratchet and Clank, you have Spider-Man 2,
Yeah.
you have Returnal, you have Astrobot, you have Helldivers.
All of those games
2,
could have been played on PS4.
And now you have Death Stranding, right?
Yeah.
And
Death Stranding 2 is like, I don't even know, like they could have scaled that down to the PS4. Like legit, probably.
I have a feeling they could have too, but I'm happy that they really tried to make the graphics top notch.
Yeah.
And maybe I have to play the game to really be able to make a definitive statement. But I think if they really wanted to, they could have made a dumbed down version for a PS4.
Now, again, don't get me wrong. Innovations in 3D spatial audio, like you wouldn't get some of the stuff they've innovated on in the audio sector in those games. Fine. Death Stranding 2 specifically has a lot of audio and music enhancements. But again, I don't need that.
Yeah, and I guess I was just pulling up
game.
some other ones. Then you have some second party exclusives like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is eventually going to end up on everything.
Yeah.
And that's going to be able to run on a Switch too.
Yeah.
More than likely.
So if it can run on a Switch 2, it can run on a PS4.
Right. And then, I mean, I'm speculating, but why wouldn't they? And then
they were already bringing the
Stellar Blade, but that didn't blow me away. So then, really, and when you're looking at first party, like Astrobot, Spider-Man 2, Helldivers 2,
nothing crazy.
Ratchet and Clank, and then so really you don't have, and then I guess Returnal, right? So I'm not saying they're not like good games. I really enjoyed all of them, right? But it's just not anything that gripped me in the same way as the PS4 generation, where I was like, oh my god, Uncharted 4.
Uncharted 4 was like insane.
That blew me away, and I was like, okay, I have to upgrade.
Yeah, right? Like even from Uncharted 3, like that was such a huge step up, and that game went through development hell too. So it's funny because they found a way to make justify the existence of some of those games on that generation only. Even though I didn't like all the games on PS4, like. Actually, the funny part is in 2019 to 2020 is when most of the bangers came out for PS4. It took actually a long time.
Right? And it was at the end of the PS4. So you got, Ghost of Tsushima and Last of Us 2, right
and
at the
Days
tail
Gone.
end. And Days Gone. All of those games were all coming out right at the end.
And one more. Yeah, and one more. Yeah, and it's like, so it's funny to see that. So what I feel like between now and 2027, we're going to get a lot of first-party studio games. Wolverine... Which again, Wolverine, Saros, Heretic, and Ghost of Yotai are probably the 4 games left, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think they're all going to be successful.
Yeah.
I think they're all going to be big hits. I thought, even though I'm not into roguelites, I think Returnal was a very good shooter. So I'm excited to see what they go with Saros. I think Wolverine will be a smash hit if they finally get it together and release it. Naughty Dog has not let me down, so I think they're going to deliver. And then, what other things? I was hearing this rumor that they're going to make that God of War 2.5D Metroid Dread type of game.
They basically, so it was supposed to be announced this year, and then Jeff Grubb basically said they've delayed it to 2026 to add voice acting. So they didn't even initially plan for voice acting.
That's really strange.
Yeah, so it was probably a small project, and they realized probably wasn't going to do well. But adding voice acting to it, in my opinion, probably also doesn't mean a whole lot either.
Yeah. So I kind of get it. Like, it has been kind of barren. And I think what Sony has done very well this generation is they have found second party exclusives that are like diamonds, right? I might not think they are, but Stellar Blade, right? That did huge numbers for them, right?
The
They
name.
technically had Black Myth Wukong as a 1 year exclusive.
Yeah.
That did amazing for them.
What's that game coming out in August? The one that just got delayed from May.
Are you talking about No, it's not Ties of Annihilation. It's Lost Souls.
Lost Soul Side.
So we'll see. But that's what they've done a really good job at. Padding things out in that way. Then they show off Borderlands 4, things like that.
Yeah.
So they do make you feel like you have things to play across the whole generation. But that output has just not been there from the PlayStation Studios. And I do think now they're finally hitting their stride.
Yeah.
I think Ghost of Yotai is going to be great. And I guess that can tie into something else to talk about, which would be what games are you looking forward to for the rest of the year, right? Marathon got delayed. So, and obviously, Grand Theft Auto 6. So I was just thinking about this. From now until the end of the year, what are you looking forward to the most?
Most of them are either multi-platform or to Nintendo. I mean, Donkey Kong, Pokemon Legends ZA, Metroid Prime 4.
If that comes out.
Borderlands 4. And that's about it, really.
Yeah, so I guess I'm actually really excited for Ghost of Yotai as well.
Oh, sorry.
I was disappointed in some ways from Ghost of Tsushima. I still really liked it. I think it was like an 8.5 out of 10 game, but people talk about it like it's a 10 out of 10. It wasn't that for me. But I've always liked Sucker Punch. And I think they're going to really be able to expand on Ghost of Yotai. I'm not really feeling the whole Assassin's Creed Origins revenge story style.
Yeah.
But I was just looking it up, and I guess Yotai is around the Hakone region. It's mountainous, it's very different, right? So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I think the vibe is going to be different, the environment. So I think that's one of my most excited games for the fall. Ninja Gaiden 4 and Outer Worlds.
Ninja Gaiden 4.
Yeah, I think those are going to be big games for me. And then maybe Mafia.
Mafia.
But that's about it. That's not a ton for the rest of the year.
It sounds like a ton that we've listed them. It's just there's not enough big releases there. They are big, but they're not the AAA, quadruple A.
Yeah, compared to 2023.
Yeah, 2023 was enough.
But I think 2026 is going to be incredibly stacked.
Hopefully. I really want to see Wolverine because what Sony just announced in their event or press event or whatever they want to call it, they said we're still committed to Wolverine. But it's when are you going to show it to us?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, and I know I have said multiple times I'm more of an Xbox fanboy, but I love my PlayStation exclusives. Some of my favorite games are God of War, The Last of Us. So I really am. I'm waiting on that output, right? And I really am hoping that now Death Stranding 2, but then Ghost of Yotai, they really just get that cadence in, right? And I guess that can tie into something else. So I was just picking Arjun's brain a little while earlier before we started the podcast about some of the sales figures about the Xbox exclusive games that have gone to Sony. And I was personally really surprised at how many of them sold, and how well they sold. I think for me, the one that, two in particular, the one that blew me away the most was Grounded. And across, this is kind of speculation, right? But, from the trackers, they're saying, it's probably about 5 million copies sold, between, because I think Steam is 4.1 million.
Wow.
And then I think PlayStation is not a ton, maybe 300,000-400,000, but that was months ago. So it's probably more now. But I know a lot of people played, they mentioned 15 or 20 million
so 20
players.
Million,
But man, for 5 million copies sold, that's a lot.
It's good because it was a small team that put the game together, and it probably had a small budget, so they made all their money back.
Massive amount of money, and then it started making sense. I was like, oh, okay. I guess if you sold a lot, you have money to now really do this thing with the Deus Ex developers. The Deus Ex, I did not expect them to partner up.
Yeah, that's weird.
So that surprised me. Sea of Thieves, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but man, that has been such a massive hit for them. Because I remember when Sea of Thieves first came out, and I remember how much you were kind of dogging the game.
I mean, that game is garbage, but I'll say this.
And I forced you and some of our other friends to play Sea of Thieves with me so many times. I'd be like, guys, we can sail this ship.
And didn't they just announce a new expansion again during the Xbox Direct?
They did, yeah. I mean, God, they're in season
15,
something like that, something crazy. And I was reading it's 15 million sold. That's probably one of the most successful Xbox games since the 360.
As much shit that we talk about some of these other studios, what's the studio that made Little Big?
Media Molecule?
Media Molecule, and a couple other ones that haven't been outputting over the years. I can't give shit to Rare because the fact that they put out a product that has so that much, I'm like, you guys do whatever you want.
Yeah.
If you can do something like that, and you have, I'm not saying they've been irrelevant, but they've been so in the shadows.
Yeah, I mean, everyone had kind of given up on Rare, right? Because I
Yeah.
feel like they were like, all right, no banjos. You guys are making amazing games
Yeah.
for this N64, 360, and people like Cameo, but they were kind of disappointed in, Banjo. And Xbox One came out, and we had no exclusives.
All we had
and
was
we
the
were
Rare
all,
collection.
Yeah, Rare Collection. We all had high hopes for Sea of Thieves. And then
Yeah.
it came out, we're like, what the hell is this? But I guess this also speaks to Grounded and Sea of Thieves. Like, they did a really good job creating like a very passionate community, listening to that community, giving that community what they wanted, and then that community was really their marketing. They were like the advertisement. Like I remember, like Shroud, I think he's a big streamer still, and he used to play some Halo too. And I don't really follow streamers like that, but he started playing Sea of Thieves randomly, and then they got like a huge surge from there.
Yeah, word of mouth spreads. But I think this is funny now that I'm thinking about it. You mentioned Astra about earlier, and Sony had basically admitted after it won Game of the Year, said, hey, we want to create more games in that genre because that's like an untapped potential for us. Well, you look at all the Mario games and now Donkey Kong, and like those are big, right, for kids. Well, look at Sea of Thieves and Grounded. I think that hit the same audience.
Yeah.
And I think so Xbox has started taking advantage of it. They're like, we know we have a big audience for this type of game, especially on PC. And I think if they continue down their route, like that's fine. They will sell well.
I mean, think about it. Like when we think of like live service games, like I think of like Halo Infinite and but man, Microsoft actually has a lot of live service games that are still going strong. Like technically Forza Horizon 5 is live service, right?
What? Yeah.
Because they're still making updates. It's still selling so well. I was just reading, we were talking about it. They just sold like easy 2 million copies on PlayStation. Insane, right?
Yeah, that one's insane.
And so like now you have that community that's still going, Grounded, Sea of Thieves, and honestly, like I wasn't expecting those games to be the ones that were so successful. And I was just talking to you about it. And again, this is a lot of speculations, but when I was looking at something like the Indiana Jones sales figures, right? I thought that would be selling like hotcakes. I thought that would be killing it. Easy 4-6 million games sold, right? And I was kind of surprised where I was reading something where Microsoft was announcing, okay, like 4 million people who played Indiana Jones, Avowed, which everyone says is a trash game, it was like 5.9 million.
I know.
Gamers played, right?
And same with Doom. Like the numbers were like lower.
And Doom, everyone is like, Doom is like insane, and I love Doom, but it didn't sell that crazy well compared to like Doom and Doom Eternal.
Yeah, I think they said only 3 million people played the game. Yeah, in the first month.
So again, like I think we have these narratives, and we just like really have these scales on like what is a success and what is a failure. And it doesn't always line up because I would, based off of how people talk about it online, like I would never say that Avowed had more people who played and had more sales than, those games. And again, this is speculation because it's not like we're getting actual release information, but just based off of how people have been tracking these games. The fact that there's even an argument to be made is insane, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like gamers our age are more selective. And we grew up, again, for people around the 30s, mid-30s, etc., we grew up in an era where when we were kids, we were playing mature games. So when we were teenagers or like 10 years old, we were playing Halo. That was a game that was rated mature.
Oh, yeah. I think I first started playing Halo, when I was easy elementary school.
Yeah, so think about it. We grew up with mature rated games, and that's why we continue to love them, but we're the most outspoken about them. Kids of this day and age, what do they grow with? Minecraft. And they Roblox. Yeah. So what speaks to them the most? Sea of Thieves, Grounded.
I mean, I guess I
Mario.
don't know as many people in that age group. Like, I mean, I have a nephew, but because you're right, because when I think about like 2006, 2007, right, we're 13, 14 years old, we're dating ourselves, but, and what was I playing? Mass Effect, Bioshock, Halo,
Mortal Kombat,
Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
That was eating good, right?
Yeah, but again, so our expectations is like, okay, so we were spoiled because the games were so well written, create like so much choice and player freedom, and like we're spoiled in that we expect the same type of game now.
Well, I feel like the industry has changed, right? Because we don't really have games that are like storytelling games in the same way, right? Yeah. Like only like the cream of the crop will really have just great narratives, right? Mm-hmm. But now a lot of games, they, and even like new games that come out, right? Like brand new IPs, they don't always have a single player, and they don't
Yeah.
have like a story that's being told, right?
Yeah.
And in the past, like that was something expected of every game. You know,
Yeah.
like you would
Which
never release a multiplayer only game.
which is why a lot of studios, it's funny, Arc Systems said this last week in their presents, is that it's so risky to create a new IP that's a AAA game because oftentimes now it just fails,
Yeah,
especially
this
if
is so
it's
true.
not well known. And so what they do now, and they were saying this, and I think a lot of studios are doing this, is they want to go mid range. You want to make a AA game, has a decent budget, that has something that's appealing to everyone, but it's not this massive open world.
I mean, it makes sense, and I mean, I guess I don't really know who's to blame. I don't know if anyone's to blame. Like maybe things just change. But as much as we hate just sequels on top of sequels and remakes on top of remakes, like people are paying with their wallets, right?
Yeah.
And so, like switching over to movies, like Elio bombed, right?
Oh
like,
yeah, I heard
Elio
about
totally
that.
bombed.
You thought it was gonna do good.
I thought it would do good. Reviews were good. Like people are like less in their political feelings about Disney. I mean, they still are, but not as much as they used to be, right? So I was like, okay, like I think this is going to be good for them. They've been releasing. They're just off the heels of Inside Out 2, right? People love that, so probably those people will be like, oh, Elio, I'm going to go check it out. Absolutely bombed, right?
Yeah.
And even Pixar was talking about it. They're like, okay, like you give us crap for making like Toy Story like 15, right? But then we make a new IP,
No,
and it's not like I haven't seen it, right? But it's not like it's such a terrible movie. Like it actually has good critic and audience reviews. No one went to go see it. So then, like, why would you're telling these executives that like we don't want new IPs, right? And so then they're just going to remake stuff. Like look at Lilo and Stitch. You remade that, made a ton of money. You remade How to Train Your Dragon, made a ton of money.
Yeah.
Why would anyone greenlight a new IP?
They don't want to. Yeah.
They're not going to.
And it's the same with the video game industry, which is why it's funny. I think that there's a Disney executive that just came out saying, "Hey, we have a lot cooking now. We know in the past several years we've been doing live remakes. We're going back to animation, and it sounds like they're going to be remaking again the animation movies in animated form again. So it's kind of funny because it's like this is what everyone complains, or maybe a minority of people complain about wanting new things. Dude, the majority of people just want the same shit over and over again.
Yeah. And I guess that's like kind of the harsh reality. I mean, there's still breakout successes, and I'm happy there has been. I don't know. I guess I'll have to. I really think about it, but I feel like as the decades go on, I feel like there's less breakout successes, right? Like
that's why less risk now.
Because like even in our generation, like what would you say are some of the big narrative breakout successes, right? Like Baldur's Gate 3, but technically that's Baldur's Gate 3, right? 3, so okay, they had 2 before that.
So yeah, think about
Black Myth Wukong. That was a big game, brand new.
Sure.
And other stuff people have just not really been happy about, right?
Elden Ring, but that's technically the 4th iteration of a game.
Elden Ring is like the culmination of how old is Demon Souls, guys? Like Demon Souls is like it's like 19 years old. Yeah, it's like, so they've just been building on themselves. So, but I guess like we went on a kind of a tangent.
Yeah.
And I guess if we're talking about old stuff coming back, we might as well talk about Gears of War as well. Yeah. Gears of War Reloaded.
Gears of War.
Dude. I was very surprised at how many people are pre-ordering Gears of War. I think maybe you weren't as surprised as me.
I mean, I'm surprised.
But I read it, like, how is, like, I don't know the exact sales figures, but I read an article that Gears of War Reloaded has more pre-orders than Death Stranding 2. I mean, it's obviously like 2 weeks late.
It's crazy to hear that. Because that's coming still only 2 weeks before a release of a game where you would have thought most of the pre-orders already came in.
So, I mean, this is like, I think 2 or 3 weeks old news, but still, like, you would think a lot of people would be buying Death Stranding 2 right before it came out.
Especially for a game that's now almost exactly 20 years old. It's 19 years old. And
Insane.
It's like...
And it's not like they really did much,
They didn't do really anything.
Because they... 2015, they redid the game a little bit, right? And then now it's just 4K.
And, like... It's weird because I've seen a lot of people posting clips on Twitter, and these clips are garnering... So, for those that don't know, the beta for Gears of War Reloaded, there was a 2-week beta. The first day was so horrible, they extended the beta by an extra day because the servers were just constantly going down. Fine, maybe a lot of people were playing, they didn't expect it. But a lot of Twitter clips are getting posted for multiplayer. I would say about 200 to 300K views, which is not bad for an old 20-year-old game.
That's really good, yeah.
And people are just reliving the old Gears of War multiplayer moments. Like the stuff I used to see of trash talking is like back. and people are just going ham, and
I
they
love
know
it.
this game is.
I've been
buggy,
watching
glitchy.
like people wall bouncing and stuff,
Dude.
and I've been watching people like complain about the sniper and
Yeah,
stuff like
but
that.
they don't know that the game
And
has
I'm
been
like,
always
dude, this
broken
is
like that.
how the game
This is the
This is
game.
the game, bro.
Yeah.
It's so old.
Yeah, and I'm like, damn, I miss this, and I'm like, again, you just don't get games like that. I grew up. See, again, 2006. So I played this game when I was 12. A mature rated game.
I know.
Again,
That was normal for us.
so it speaks to me, but will that speak to kids this day? No.
I don't know. Maybe.
I just don't feel like it will. But also, it's so janky and unique that again, when I played it at the time, it felt right. So it still feels right. I haven't lost the muscle memory.
I remember, bro, I was so annoyed at you with that sniper. Because when I used to play, like, I didn't realize how much you played. Because I know I played a lot more Halo than you, but you played a lot more Gears than me, right? And God, you sniping everybody. I was always a Nasher guy. I just loved the Nasher battles. So
I mean, I love the sniper so much. I would blind fire and just anyone that ran at me with a shotgun, I would still snipe them.
I mean, it's amazing to me now that like it's having its renaissance, and you know, I know some people might be kind of. I don't know if people are upset about Gears of War going to PS5. Like, I feel like when Halo makes the inevitable jump,
I think they'll be more outraged.
Will be very outraged about that. Yeah. But I feel like the Gears community has really embraced.
Yeah, they've embraced
everyone because honestly, like. The Gears community was kind of on the
down.
It was kind of dying, you know.
It's on life support, basically.
Right, and I think you know people like Gears 5, and you know because it's been a while since Gears 5, like now, and then Gears E-Day, you know, we got the trailer, it looked amazing. That's why there's been a lot more, you know, fervor, and people are excited for it. But man, just like the energy that is soaring, like when it comes to the Gears community and just talking Gears, has been amazing to see ever since like. You know, people have gotten to really play Gears Reloaded, and I love that, and I love the fact that like Gears is now cool again, and people are talking about it. You know,
I like to see that because it's sentimental to me, but I hope Coalition takes one thing away from this and says if the multiplayer that we're working for on E-Day has anything it can do, try to mirror a little bit of what Gears of War 1 and 2 brought to the.
But you played Gears 5 multiplayer, right?
And I did not like it at all.
So. I don't know, maybe I just don't see the difference, but I felt like Gears 5 wasn't that different than Gears Ultimate Edition. I mean, I think like it was more like Lancers and stuff like that, right? Like it was like...
It became Call of Duty-esque.
Yeah. But I guess like, you know, compared to when you play Halo 4 versus Halo 3, like that was a jarring experience.
That was a very jarring.
Like Halo, like Gears 5 to me, it was just kind of like maybe they made some changes that are like unpopular, but I can still kind of masher the way I like
sometimes,
to. Snipe the way I like to. So yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder if like Gears if Gears Reloaded, you know, massive hit, right? And then if all of a sudden people play Gears 5, like, but now everyone be gassing up Gears 5.
I mean, I don't know. I just feel like they need to bring some of that jank back into the Gears multiplayer to bring that magic back.
I think it's too smooth.
Yeah.
You want to bring back the wall bouncing?
Yeah, bring back the wall bouncing. Just make it simple. Like, that was the great thing about Gears. It was so simple that it was fun. So, playing Annex or King of the Hill, just constantly dying and reviving or respawning was so much fun.
Stupid fun.
And stupid fun. And the maps were so good. It brought more life to the game. And now in Gears 5, it was just... Honestly, the maps.
You know, I kind of get what you're saying, because like I feel like Gears of War 1 maps were really unbalanced.
Yeah,
and even Gears of War 2 maps were really unbalanced. But that's like what made it fun, right? Especially when you were doing King of the Hill, you're like, oh man, they are just fucking squatting the boom shot. And you're like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And so then when you finally overtake them,
you're like,
oh,
damn.
So that's kind of funny, you know. I guess it kind of has this identity. So I wonder what they're gonna do with Gears.
Well, I hope they look at this and they'll look at the numbers. And if, let's say, it becomes a big hit on release on August, and a lot of people playing PlayStation, specifically PlayStation, they go, okay, maybe let's make this game multi-platform when it comes out, Gears E-Day, and let's give just a separate mode, not the whole multiplayer like package, but a separate mode that mirrors Gears 1 player.
Yeah, just make a... Well, speaking of, I just got back into Halo Infinite. Mm-hmm. God, I feel like Halo Infinite is the X I can never leave. So I didn't realize this was a thing, and it just showed up in my YouTube feed, but apparently they made like a Halo 3 throwback, and so I was like, okay, I'll try this out. Oh my god, it feels like Halo 3.
Does it?
It feels like
How
Halo
long is
3.
it gonna last for?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, if you want that like feeling or that itch, like that nostalgia, you should download it and play
Yeah.
it. The movement is exactly Halo 3,
It's
like
kind of
the
interesting.
jumping, everything. The maps feel exactly like Halo
They
3.
should be advertising this more.
And and oh my god, it's like all of the freaking maps, and they actually look really good. And I was playing the game, and I was like, damn, I feel like it's 2007 again. And you know, they don't have like the assault rifle, from back then, because it functions a little differently. But they have like the submachine gun kind of thing, and it kind of feels similar. So yeah, I was surprised. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion too, but I didn't really like it that much.
Oh, you didn't like it?
I didn't
The
like
way
it
you were
that
talking
much.
about it made it sound like
It
you.
was really cool to like be thrown back in 2007, but I just feel like
It's dated.
the way I game is so different.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is jarring for me.
See, so
Right?
look at the comparison now. Like Gears multiplayer, in my opinion, never felt dated, but with Halo, it evolved.
Yeah.
Like legitimately
So
evolved.
I think with me, I never realized how big of a difference sprinting and clambering makes, but my
Yeah.
god, it changes everything. Because when I'm playing Halo 3, you have to be so strategic about your placement, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like when I was playing Halo Infinite, like you have to be a little strategic, but if you get yourself in a bad situation, you can do some advanced movement techniques, use some equipment, stuff like that. You have like options to get out of there. And so in that way, like you didn't have to be so mindful of your placement at all times. But I feel like at a high level when you're playing Halo 3, like or Halo 3 like gameplay, you have to be very mindful of like, hey, how far away am I from cover?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a BR game. If I'm this far out of any cover and these are the places that people can attack me from, they are going to shred my shields and kill me before I can get there, right?
Yeah.
And you can have your little shimmy technique and get really good with it. That's true. But like for me, placement was king, right? And then you can't just easily clamber. You can't really go vertical in Halo 3, right? Because you can grenade jump, yeah, but then you're gonna lose your shield and you're gonna be an open. It's gonna be hard, right?
Yeah.
People are gonna notice you and shred you. But in Halo Infinite, you have a lot more verticality to escape, right?
Right.
When Halo 3, it's very horizontal gameplay, right? And so you're gonna have to strafe. You're gonna have to be careful about cover. So it just felt so tactical, and I feel like if I played it more, I would enjoy it more. But right now, like the whole time, I was just getting frustrated because I'm just like, oh God, I'm not good at this anymore.
Right.
And I wish I could just like, slide away from people and things like that. So I enjoyed it because of how like perfectly to me it really captured the Halo 3 feel. And God, that's amazing that Forge is that, flexible, that they can do that, right? That's just amazing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I still kind of like Halo Infinite gameplay better. And I know that's an unpopular opinion because a lot of YouTube streamers have been playing it and they're like, oh God, this is amazing. Why can't all games be like that? But, if Gears of War EA could do something like that, best of both worlds, oh, that'd be amazing.
We'll see. I don't know what it looks like. That's what scares me. But if they find the right way to evolve the game, like I said, Halo did that. Then it makes sense. And speaking of Halo, we might as well talk about this now. So it was just announced by Halo Studios that they're going to show on what they're working next during the Halo World Championships in
But they
October.
always do this. They always talk about their big stuff at the championship instead of
nothing.
just talking about it at a showcase.
Yeah,
it's like for
me.
some reason, like Halo just wants to just like do Halo things on Halo time.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys.
A bit of an ego.
Right? Like, no, it's like, okay, like, Bethesda, like, their games are selling way better than you guys, Call of Duty, their games are selling way better than you guys. But Call of Duty is going to show up on an Xbox showcase, like, Halo, bro. Like, why don't you just show up on an Xbox showcase?
So, yeah, I mean, I find it interesting because, yeah, first of all, it's just stupid in general, but, they had showed off Project Foundry last year, which looked as if, they confirmed they were using Unreal Engine, and it looked like a demo, almost a Combat Evolved in some way, or a prototype.
But they were saying it wasn't.
And now they're saying that they're going to show what they're working on going forward, and rumors are right now that they're working on Combat Evolved for Unreal Engine.
So, I thought a lot about this since last time, because I think last time I was thinking, hey, it's going to be certain Infinity's multiplayer mode, and it's going to come out. And then afterwards, I don't know why it just struck me. And I was like, you know, I've been thinking this whole time that Halo CE is going to be a remake, right? And it's going to be like one of the Resident Evil games and stuff like that. And they're going to bring in Halo Infinite's like all of their changes, and they might even change the story and things like that. And I was like, you know, if these guys are going to release in 2026, wouldn't they just basically do what Oblivion did? Like, wouldn't they just take the creation, like, they took the creation engine and they just basically skinned Unreal on top of it and they made some modifications, right, to some of the gameplay
They
elements.
could be doing it that way.
Right? Couldn't you just have the base game running in the Blam engine and then just put
Yeah.
Unreal Engine on top and make it look really nice,
Yeah.
and then just incorporate the
Which-
speed and sliding in a way that doesn't break the game from Halo Infinite,
Yeah.
and call it a day?
So that's why I feel like the rumors are probably true. It's probably Combat Evolved, and this probably wasn't a ground up project.
Yeah.
This was just them to get their feet dirty, a little bit, hands wet, and I think that's what it is. Because you can't get this out. You can't show this a year prior and then get this out a year later.
So then it really is like Halo CE remastered, right?
More
but it's not
remastered
like-
than remake.
But it's not like the PlayStation remastered, which is not a remaster.
Yeah.
It's just what it would look like if it was running on the next console.
Which is funny because like there was also rumors that Master Chief Collection was coming to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. I don't think that's going to happen now, because if you're going to take this and put it on PlayStation, you're not going to then also put MCC out. It's just you're fighting against each other.
At least they're going to go, unless you find a way to space it out, right? Like unless in November you're announcing for like January or February, and then the next thing comes out in November. Like I feel like if you space it out like 10 months.
But isn't the Combat Evolved on Master Chief Collection the remastered? The one where you have the remastered graphics already?
Yeah.
So then what would be the point then of remastering?
Okay, but I guess like this is kind of like niche Halo stuff, and I don't know if like general people would care, but I think a lot of Halo bros really hate that remaster because even though it looks a lot better, they kind of screwed up the lighting in places, and they like kind of screwed some stuff up, so it looked kind of weird and it didn't function the same way.
But that's not going to matter because you don't have a bunch of Halo fans on PlayStation. Like the point is
true,
to
that's
introduce
true,
it to a new audience that probably has never touched it.
Yeah, that's true.
So will they even care? Like I get what you're saying. It's just
So I think the only way it makes sense is if they're confident that Halo CE remaster looks very different than the Master Chief Collection.
Which I think it will.
Like it has to be like light years beyond, right?
And, well, I'll say this: like, look at Ninja Gaiden Black 2. That is still miles beyond the original version, and it looks. I can't still believe I'm playing an Unreal Engine 5 game. And it's like beautiful looking. It's just like insane. Fucking insane.
Yeah. So, but now the more and more I think about it, like I feel like that's plausible. You know, I think there's still a possibility that like there is a certain Affinity project, or even that it's like basically that reskin, and then you know, certain Affinity is just kind of making a multiplayer mode. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be like a massive project, right? Like I feel like it's going to be like a $50 game type of thing. You know, $60 game, like not a full game, right? As we are defining those things now. But I just thought that was kind of curious. I did not expect them to announce anything for like I didn't think Halo Studios was going to say a word about what they were up to.
I didn't either, but
the fact that they are really surprised me.
Well, it's weird because like Phil kind of teased some Halo work, but didn't outright call it out in the Xbox Direct. And now they're saying, "Oh yeah, 4 months later, we'll have something to talk about." It's like, wow, okay, they just I guess needed a little more time.
Yeah.
So it's like
yeah, that's kind of odd, right? Because you would think like Phil would know that timeline. So like, you know, they're gonna be like, oh, and one more thing that's been with us from the beginning, and maybe you'll get a sneak peek later in the fall.
Later in the fall. Like that's not hard to say. Right? Like what the hell? So that's why I don't know. Again, and that's coming from your CEO. You know, if your CEO said it, like okay, you know. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that really quickly because of all these rumors that have been going on. And it's funny because in the post by Halo Studios, they acknowledged that there's been a lot of rumors about what they've been working on. So I found it funny. It's almost like their way of acknowledging that, yes, some of what's been going out there is probably somewhat accurate. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of Microsoft, I feel like we might as well get into it now. There's been a lot of heavy rumors that starting tomorrow, I know this will get posted later, but July 2nd, there's going to be some layoffs at Microsoft and Xbox. Well, there's already been layoffs in Microsoft. And there's been layoffs going on for the last 14 months. Xbox is about to get.
I think we have kind of different takes about it because I think it's going to be more of like pruning, and I think they're just going to be more like laying off like 10% of their workforce, systematically just across the board, right? So like certain studios might get a little bit more than others, but I think it's just going to be a pruning across everybody. But you're thinking it might be more studio specific, and certain studios are really going to get hit hard.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we have one, maybe two closures.
Ooh.
Look, so here's what Jason Schreier reports: Xbox fiscal year ends today, and this was on June 30th. But the mass layoffs that Bloomberg News reported on last week are expected to hit on Wednesday. For people wondering, and now let me bring up one other thing because I think this is relevant. Um, Microsoft invested approximately 182.5 million euros into Ninja Theory between the acquisition and June 30th, 2023. And here's a crazier thing. Microsoft acquisition of Ninja Theory cost approximately 90 million, and their subsequent investment was another 92 million, so that comes out to 182. Total revenue during this period amounted to approximately 23.
Yeah, it's a massive loss for them.
So
wait, so is that including Hellblade?
It's just between years when they were acquired to 2023, not
Okay.
including Hellblade. It's just between those years how much they invested.
How did they even make revenue then? What were people buying? Hellblade?
Oh, what was that one Xbox multiplayer game we played?
Bleeding Edge? People actually
Yeah.
bought that?
I mean, barely.
So, okay.
I mean, I could see either Massive Ninja Theory or maybe they get closed because they just released Hellblade 2 on PlayStation. They had some pro enhancements, but no one's buying it, obviously.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that too because they have Project Mara, but that's kind of like questionable, like where they're going with that. So I think out of all the studios, the one I can see getting hit would be Ninja Theory. Now, with the thing is with Microsoft, I feel like they got a lot of crap for Hi-Fi Rush, right? So I don't know if they would just want to like kill the plug, just kill it, all outright, if that's what they're thinking because of that backlash. I just kind of see them pruning until there's nothing left, right?
Yeah, so
normally, or pruning until they change it to something else. Like, for instance, they basically almost shut down 343, right? Yeah. And then they made it Halo Studios, but it's not like they had to deal with the flack of, oh yeah, we just shut down.
It's not about the flack though. It's you prune because when a project comes out and it's a failure, you go back to the drawing board and the incubation phase. And when you go into the incubation phase, there's a lot of engineering that you don't need and a lot of roles you don't need. You go, we only need you when we get close to production again.
Yeah.
So they prune, say you all are not needed until 2 or 3 years from now. We'll hire people like you back then again. And we're going to go with a small team to develop a prototype until we get to a phase that.
Yeah, because if they're more in like pre-production, right, yes. As opposed to like full production, it makes sense. Like you don't need like that full team because what are those people going to do anyway?
Exactly. Like you don't need a marketing manager and a community manager. But my point being is, you brought it up earlier. Do they want to live with them continuing on this Project Mara thing and them developing new technologies for their other studios? I say cut Ninja Theory. That's a loss at this point. You don't need them anymore. I also think Double Fine is going to get hit. I mean, I'm not going to lie, this new game that they revealed looks like garbage.
Arjun, I think you're just speculating too much now.
I mean, this is all speculation, but I'm saying they need to hit Double Fine. Funny enough, Tim Schafer just came out on Twitter a day or two ago with something really ominous that he tweeted, and then he deleted that tweet. He definitely probably knows about layoffs. I don't know if it's for his own team, but I just think that team needs to get hit too. Like, Psychonauts, great, well written.
Well, Arjun, did you ever play Psychonauts?
I did, actually. I played for like 2.5 hours.
Oh my god, Arjun.
I mean, god awful jumping in that game. The platform is fucking atrocious. Like, I'm just not gonna.
True, but the story was amazing. I think Psychonauts is probably one of my favorite games of this generation. So I guess
see how many units
for you, I'll have to disagree because I don't think and I guess if it ends up being tomorrow, we'll find out by then. Maybe even by the time this is posted. But I don't see them getting cut that hard because they don't have a huge workforce to begin with. Psychonauts 2, Double Fine is a really small studio. And they've always kept things really nimble. And for a long time, they've actually been functioning on very little, right? And so with that in mind, I really don't think they cost that much.
Yeah, I mean, about 103 employees. And Psychonauts 2 only sold 1.7 million copies. So maybe that makes about sense for a studio that size.
So I think Psychonauts I don't think Double Fine is going to get hit because I think they're in that Goldilocks region where they have probably multiple AA projects. And even if each AA project is making very little, right? Or, how we would define
they're probably breaking even.
They're breaking even or they're making enough. And I think people have so much respect for Tim Schafer. Like, I think Microsoft gets a lot of brownie points from like a certain generation of gamers just because they have Tim
Yeah,
Schafer
I
there,
can
right?
see that. Logically, that makes
So
sense.
I don't, I can see them if they need to prune, right? Because if Keeper is, right there on the horizon, maybe they don't need all those people, that they normally would need, right? Because they're in the last leg. But I don't think they're going to get hit hard. I do think out of all of the studios, the one that, looks like they would get pruned would probably be um, Compulsion. And then
See that?
definitely I can see um, the Hellblade team, right? Like I can see that because that, I mean, objectively it underperformed,
Yeah.
right?
I
Um,
also think Turn 10. I think Forza hasn't been doing as good as the
no,
Horizon.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know how big Turn 10 is though. That's the only thing. But from what I gather, they're pretty massive.
Oh, exact numbers are not known.
Yeah,
Between 1 to 200 contract
but the
workers
thing is, like,
and 100 full time. So
we're
about
in
300.
we're in a stage right now where like I really can't judge, right? Because if I was just being like hardcore, manager, like let's look at just like the wins and losses, like I mean, and as far as I can tell, like Indiana Jones didn't sell that great, Doom didn't sell that great, compared to what we would expect. So you could argue that, hey, shouldn't those be, axed in a similar way to Hellblade or Compulsion or things like that? Because, it's
What?
surprising what things have underperformed and overperformed in the Game Pass generation because Game Pass just changes the perception of success for
Yeah,
a lot of
but
these games and studios.
that's so they have to look at their measurement of success differently. So that I understand, but I also look at the company that made Indiana Jones. They also their output is much greater than Ninja Theory. So like if I'm looking at it from
Is
that
it
perspective,
though? Because the last game they made was Wolfenstein.
yeah. But how many Wolfenstein games have they made?
Well, three,
Three.
but one of them was trash.
Yeah, but
So
three plus Indiana Jones. That's 4 games in a span of 10 years.
no, it was way longer than 10 years. It was
10?
like 15 years.
Okay, 15 years, 4 games. So that's an average of 3.5 years a game. And how many games has Ninja Theory output in the
Three,
last 15 years?
four.
4. But one of them was a PlayStation. No.
So they had Devil May Cry, Hellblade 1, Hellblade 2, and then they had Bleeding Edge.
Yeah. So now you look at Devil May Cry and Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge was more of this experimental
Yeah.
game.
The Devil May Cry did pretty good. Oh, and they also had Enslaved.
Did Insect do good?
Fairly good.
Okay. So yeah, fair enough. I mean, look, the way I look at it is Ninja Theory has to go regardless.
Arjun, I think you just really hated Hellblade 2.
Honestly, yeah, it was like bad. It was like really bad.
I like Hellblade 2, so I think that's why I don't really.
I mean, which one did you like better, Indiana Jones or Hellblade?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Like, I'm just curious.
I have to think about it.
You know,
I really have not thought about it before. Probably I would say Indiana Jones.
there you go. Let's let go of Ninja. I can be the CEO of Microsoft. I'll just let him go over tomorrow.
Yeah, but I liked Hellblade 50 times more than Death Stranding 1.
Yeah,
and Metaphor,
but they
and
sold,
Dragon's
but
Dogma,
that
and
game,
Stellar Blade.
but Death Stranding once sold like 4 million units. Yeah. So they sold better than Hellblade. Here's the thing: we're 39 minutes away from Wednesday. I could just make a call to Phil right now, like yo, let's get rid of this Chop Ninja thing.
Arjun, I think you play very few games, and the fact that you invested in one and you were disappointed
Exactly. What
is
like,
why
what you tell
you
me
need
earlier?
Hellblade to be
What
axed.
did you tell me earlier?
And-
that you don't like to take risks on games you don't think. And I took a risk on a game you recommended.
I told you you wouldn't like it.
You recommended this game.
But I told you wouldn't
No,
like it.
you always do this thing. You preface it, but I'm just warning you, Arjun. If you don't like this, it wasn't my fault. But you should try it.
Arjun, I knew you wouldn't like Hellblade because the gameplay was terrible, right? And I think for me, like, it was just... It made me really think, and it was just kind of creatively cool. The setting was cool.
The setting was
so that's
cool.
what I liked about it. The graphics were good, but the gameplay was not that great, right? So I get it. And, Hellblade 2, I think, objectively, even though it's a game I really like, I think it's an objective disappointment, right? Across the board, like, it did not hit the metrics that people expected.
You're saying the second one or your general?
The second one.
Oh. I actually enjoyed the first one.
Yeah. So I think, in terms of sales, in terms of sentiment, in terms of critical reception, like, it did not, pass the mark. But again, the thing we're not seeing is what else is cooking in these studios, right? Like, we have no idea, right?
Yeah, they don't like to announce them sometimes too early because every time Microsoft has announced the game so early, it normally gets canceled in some weird way.
Yeah. So
So
so that's why like it makes it hard for me to speculate. Like I think if they're gonna do some pruning and they really have to be hard by the numbers, then that's what makes sense, right? Because and especially like the how Ninja Theory team is pretty big, right?
yeah,
I would still want them to see. I would still want to see Hellblade 3, right? And I would still want other games from them because I do like their output. But I think this can be kind of a wake up call because I think at a certain point, they may have focused too much on being more artsy and being less focused on like gameplay, right? And I think that was to the detriment of Hellblade 2. I think they really focused a lot on making it really realistic and authentic to like the experience of Psychosis, but the gameplay suffered,
right.
right? And I think that's going to be one of the big learnings for them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I want to read a couple of quotes here too. So IGN just interviewed Fryer, Laura Fryer. Okay, she's one of the founding members of like Xbox hardware, and basically what she said is she believes the firm's hardware ambitions are dead, and I quote: "There's literally no reason to buy this handheld." She's referring to the ROG Ally, Xbox Ally that was just announced here recently. And she goes, obviously, as one of the founding members of Xbox team, I'm not pleased where things are today. I don't love watching all the value that I helped create slowly get eroded away. I'm sad because from my perspective, it looks like Xbox has no desires or literally can't ship hardware anymore. So this partnership is about a slow exit from the hardware business completely. Personally, I think Xbox hardware is dead. And it has no desire or literally can't ship hardware anymore. So the reason why I bring this up, it's tangential to what we're talking about with these layoffs because a lot of people have noticed that there's been this pivot. So when Xbox originally bought Bethesda and Ninja Theory and all these other studios, they still had a desire to want to win the console wars, right? And then as soon as they bought Activision and they spent half their treasure chest, it completely changed. And I think part of that aligns to what like some people like that like Laura is saying, like, hey, I just don't think that they haven't publicly announced it, but this is where they're headed towards. And it is sad to see like the devaluing. So when it comes to layoff,
yeah, but I also feel like this person's kind of biased.
They're biased because
obviously, if
work.
you made the Xbox and the Xbox is running on a certain architecture, and if now Xbox is being subsumed by Windows, the Windows Bros run out, won out. And if you look at like the history of how the Xbox team had to, I think we were talking about that documentary.
Yeah,
and God, like it was really a massive accomplishment, and they really had to put themselves on the line to make Xbox a thing, right? And so now, to put yourself out like that, and then it was probably one of the most difficult and scariest things they have to do in their whole career, and it ended up being a huge success. But now all of that's being eroded and consumed by the guys that you had to win a victory from to even become a thing. Yeah. It's a big slap in the face.
It is.
Right?
But here's the funny thing. Now that you talk about this documentary, think about what they admitted in the documentary. We tried to buy Nintendo, right? Yeah. If they had bought Nintendo, they could have just said, well, we're pivoting. We're not going to do hardware, really. We have a partnership with this great company, and, we're making money from that. Now, they've done the same thing. Instead of continuing to make their own games, they go, we're just going to buy Activision, and we'll try supplementing that here and there and publishing some stuff. But Activision is going to be our cash cow. So in a weird way, 20 years later, they fell back into the same loop that they initially had back then. It's just one experiment failed and the other one succeeded.
Yeah. But that's the weird thing about Microsoft. Like, that's just how, in a way, like, it seems so chaotic, but it's kind of how they win and they, like, succeed because in every single, thing they went into, like, PC, this and that, they kind of just, like, eat things up and pivot and experiment and eat things up and pivot and experiment until, like, one of the things finally works. Like, look at Zoom, like, look at Windows Phone, look at all these massive things that ended up being massive failures and write-offs. Now look at their stock value. Look at how good their company is doing. They randomly went to cloud and AI, and that really worked out for them, right? And so I think like Microsoft is one of those like companies that like makes a lot of mistakes, but then has no problem doing things that'll probably also be mistakes because they're like, eventually we'll hit a diamond.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's sad because that line of thinking has been passed on from executive to executive in a weird way. That's their culture now. But it is funny because when they failed to acquire Nintendo at the time, they said, we have two options. We can either continue going into this route where we're very new and naive and we can make something. And guess what? We made the Xbox hardware, and it became big for some time. I wonder if the Activision acquisition didn't go through, they had two options. They could have completely exited the hardware business, or they could have tried one more time, and maybe they would have succeeded again.
Yeah. So I think like when they had to do the math there, they were like, okay, if we don't buy Activision Blizzard, like we're gonna always stay on the same level of competing with Sony. So like even if we win, and it's unlikely we win, but even if we win, what are we gonna gain? And then they looked at that and they're like, all right, let's say we win and we outsell Sony. Is that really moving the needle for us for like a $2 trillion, $3 trillion company?
Probably
Like,
not.
why should we care? Like let's say we literally slug it out with them.
Yeah.
How much money is that making us, right? Nothing for them, right? And so then they're like, okay, so it's not worth it, right? So why should we even bother? But then they're like, okay, if we take a different risk, and what are the odds of us being successful in the cloud or the mobile space, right? They're like, maybe just as good as us beating Sony, right? Because
Yeah.
Sony has us beat. They're like, okay, but what is the potential win there, right? And they're like, we can make a lot of money, right?
But the juice was the juice really worth the squeeze? You spent $79 billion. Like that's not a snap of the whim. Like, hey, like even if we lose this bet, whatever. This is half your war chest. So that's where I think this whole thing.
But haven't they made all that money back by now? They make like what, 23 billion or $25 billion, like a quarter.
Yeah,
like
but what's their profit every
it's
year?
absurd amounts of money that they're making, right? And think about it, like these are the people who burned like what, $6 to $8 billion on like Zune and like Nokia. They're making just insane money.
Oh, actually, goddamn. Every
So
year, their profit 70 to 80 billion.
that's
God,
what
dude,
I'm
that's
saying,
fair.
dude. Like it's insane money that they're making.
Almost like they're making all that money back in 1 year. That's insane.
Yeah.
For a shrinking Windows user base too.
Yeah, because cloud and AI is just making insane money for Microsoft, and their stock is like just doing bonkers, right? So even if they had to write off, $79 billion, it's not gonna actually kill Microsoft, right? Because they're just that massive.
Actually, this is kind of the biggest troll you can think of because they're like, yeah, so we're just gonna like really jam our fist down your throat and
Yeah.
we're still gonna be okay.
But I think what they were thinking is like, dude, like if we could make Netflix for gaming, like if we could actually make that a thing, like that's worth it, right?
Yeah.
And so, I say all that because I'm actually excited for Microsoft. I think I've like mourned the loss of Xbox, and I was really sad for a while, but I've just accepted the fact that Xbox is dead, right? Like the way I knew Xbox is gone.
Yeah, the way you knew it.
Right?
The way you grew up with it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just have to like see it as a different brand, and I just have to see it in a certain way. And if that's like seeing it as Sega, great,
I mean, it's the disruptions in the industry. They are pivoting, and they're pivoting fast, and they're being agile, and they have to do it a lot. Their path to their vision is never going to be linear at this point.
And the thing is, it's unusual for us to see a company this big having their experiments this public, right? Because most of the time it's more behind closed doors. Like you don't see this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like we're literally seeing year on year, like what experiments they're doing and what's succeeding and what's failing right in front of us. And so that's why I think it's so chaotic as a fan, because we're just like, what the hell, Microsoft? Like, you're like that relationship where I never know if you love me or hate me because you don't even know yourself, right?
Maybe. I mean, my problem is, like, every company, especially in corporate America, has a purpose, they have a vision, and they have a strategy. Their vision should be their North Star. So whatever they're trying to accomplish, strategy, again, will change. It's not going to always be linear, but they want to get to their North Star. What I have a problem with is that Microsoft, and specifically Xbox, is not telling us what their vision is anymore. So if you don't understand your vision, you're not going to be able to drive business results. You can pivot, you can change. The reason why I'm saying this is I'm in the thick of it with GM. GM has always said that their vision is 000. You've probably heard that. It's probably like a really public thing. Zero crashes, emissions, congestion, right? EV, AV, software and services. But they also know that their strategy is going to constantly shift because they don't want to become the next blockbuster. Xbox doesn't want to become the next blockbuster, or Kodak and this and that. So I can understand the pivoting, but you need to clearly show me what your vision is.
So I think Microsoft has been saying it, but people just haven't been like realizing that they're serious, because it just seems like it's a stupid slogan. But I really think their whole vision is we want everybody to play our games everywhere.
Okay, so then
on every screen. So that's literally what they
So
want.
that's the vision then. So if that's the vision, then I understand why they're pivoting the way they're
Yeah,
pivoting.
because like that's the end goal, you know. Like they literally want it to be that like whatever screen or non-screen is in front of you,
Yeah.
you can play our game.
Yeah. So to the people complaining that like, why would Xbox allow the Steam and Epic on their consoles? Because people will just buy the game on PC and they'll take a bigger cut there, and Xbox will lose. Right? It's because they want to be able to have everyone play their games everywhere,
Yeah,
anywhere. That's Xbox.
because I think like what they want is they just at its core, like if everyone is just talking about your games as much as people talk about Mario and Zelda and all those things, and you can just get that everywhere and
Yeah.
shove it down everyone's throat.
Yeah.
That's how you make killer money.
I think actually what's funny is, again, people might be very short sighted, but Xbox has the chance to be very disruptive. Instead of being reactive, they might be end up disrupting Sony 10 years from now,
So
or
that's
15 years from now.
so that's why I'm really curious to see how this happens. And I feel like we talk about Xbox a lot on this podcast, but in part is because I'm really curious to see like what that disruption is going to be. And I actually think this bet on like merging Windows and Xbox together, I'm really excited to see if they can pull it off. But when I was like watching Digital Foundry's video on the Xbox Ally, I was like, oh my god, I agree with them. I get it. And like everyone was giving them crap, like, why are you guys so negative? Like, this is exciting stuff. But I get it. Like, my god, it's a mess. You know, it's such a mess to be able to try and bridge the gap between Windows PCs and Xbox when you're also trying to have backwards compatibility and shared libraries. It is so impossible, right?
Well, that's why Sarah Bond had just announced that she put together a team to carry over backwards compatibility going forward with new silicon. That's why they announced a partnership with AMD to say we're now going to have
I
new silicon
see the
to do
moves they're making, but oh my god, like they have to have amazing engineering teams.
Yes,
Like they literally need to have the best of the best to be able to bring that all together. If they do, my god, that's going to be amazing.
I'm not going to say I'm confident, but I actually think they can pull it off.
I think they can pull it off, but I don't think they can pull it off in the timeline they want to do.
No,
right? Sure. Like if they want to do this by the next generation, right? Like I feel like the Xbox Ally is kind of like forcing.
It's a bridge gap.
It's a bridge gap, and it's forcing them to speed up their timeline.
Yeah.
But if you want to get this done by 2027 to 2028, like this is a monumental change. Like this is something that easy takes like 5 to 8 years.
So it's funny now that I say the comparison, bro, this is so funny and weird. And again, for those that this might not make sense, but if you're in the automotive industry or understand what's going on with GM and Tesla and whatnot, GM is trying to pivot and they're trying to get into EVs, AVs, and software and services. And they do that by taking all the revenue they make from their ICE vehicles, internal combustion engines. 80% of that is funding these new ventures. So what's funny is what we've been saying within the industry is if GM, Ford, and all the big companies don't pivot eventually, they might just die out.
Yeah.
Funny enough, Xbox is trying to do that. I think Sony's so stuck in their old ways, maybe they're not seeing the writing on the wall. And I don't know. I feel like so again, if we go back to what we said earlier, Sony said we like our strategy of waiting 14 to 18 months before we put a first party game on PlayStation Plus. Okay, understandable that this makes sense right now. But in the future, if you can't offer the same type of service that Microsoft is offering, you shot yourself in the foot.
So the thing is, like, it all comes to me. It comes down to your confidence in your games, right? Like, I think Microsoft realized shit. Like, we don't have the same confidence in our games because people don't necessarily want to make Halo forever. So, like, Bungie left, right? Epic, you know, they didn't want to make Gears forever, so they left, right? Who knows if new IPs will be as good as the old IPs, right? And you know, we're not able to replicate the success over time of Mario and Zelda, right? And we're not able to pivot to new IPs as successfully as Sony has done. And each time you're taking a risk, right? And they were like, man, like if some of these things blow up in your face, you could lose a whole console generation, and then you have to catch up, and that sucks, right? And I think their failures taught them that. Sony, on the other hand, is so adept at avoiding failure because they planned so well in advance. They didn't have that learning, right? Because as long as you're constantly releasing good games at a good rate and keeping your consumer base happy, like you can just keep the status quo and maybe eke out more dollars from them as time goes on, right? That strategy is totally viable, right? Sony can do it. But if you screw up a little bit, it starts blowing up in your face.
Well, let's go back one step and that comparison image. Right now, ICE vehicles are profitable for most companies. is making first party games that are not offered on any other service besides buying it full price the ice of their
Yeah, I mean it's basically the ice, but it's not as lucrative as it used to be, right?
right.
Because you're spending more on development, right? So
Exactly.
good point. So then I think those are the things that are starting to show the cracks in
Yeah.
Sony's armor, right? So, but the thing is, like, Sony cannot do what Microsoft has done because in order to do that, you have to take a massive L up front,
Yeah.
right? And no one else has those deep pockets as Sony,
Right.
right? So the only thing Sony can do is either they can start merging.
Yeah.
Like I heard that they want to buy HBO.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
You
rumors.
start merging and things like that and synergizing, and then you slowly get bigger and bigger and level up that way.
Yeah.
That's a strategy.
So you're basically gatekeeping a
Yeah.
bunch of IP away from your competitor's platform.
Or you pad your potential losses, right? So I think if you continue to overperform with your second parties, right? Or
Helldivers.
yeah, Helldivers, Stellar Blade, things like that. Then you can maybe survive a little better, and then you'll be fine.
Which is funny because now the developer of Helldivers is taking a partnership with Tencent and is adamant they don't want to do a exclusive game with Sony again.
Really?
Yep. They said fuck you.
No
and
way.
Their next game is going to be multi-platform, and they're not doing the. I guess they did not have a good relationship or partnership with Sony.
Man, that's surprising because
Arrowhead.
you would think that Sony would be so happy with them.
Yeah, but
They
maybe
sold
it's the
so
way.
much.
I know, but it's maybe the way that they worked, where Sony probably didn't believe in them because they didn't market the game really well, by the way,
Yeah.
and they probably gave them next to nothing in terms of market budget. And I bet you that pissed off Arrowhead, and then they're like, "See,
And then Arrowhead did so well, and then they were like, Sony, we're getting too many players.
Yep,
We need help.
And the next thing that hurt them was when Sony mandated you had to have a PSN account, especially in regions that didn't have PSN support.
Wow.
And they're like, you're now limiting us from selling this game, which probably still hurt them. God knows by how much, but still it did.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that where Sony shoots themselves in the foot without realizing half the times. And they go, oh, people just flock to us.
Yeah.
Not all the time.
So, I mean, I don't know if this is like another contentious opinion, but it's something I was thinking. Like, I can really see Sony try and replicate Disney's success, right? Like I feel like that's a good path for them. Like, let's say they even ate up, HBO, right? You can synergize so well with HBO, right?
Yeah.
You have a lot of interesting IPs. You can turn them into movies and TV shows. You can turn their movies and TV shows into video games. You got that
DC
synergy,
specifically.
right? And you already have Spider-Man, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can really see that doing well for them. You can try and get more into amusement parks,
Yeah.
experiences,
Yeah.
collectible items. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like they could be get bigger and bigger the way Disney has.
Yeah, I
Right?
could see it. I mean, I don't know. I'm just gonna. It'd be funny to see 10 to 15 years from now if somehow Microsoft got back on top and reclaimed the throne. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised at this point.
Well, I guess it's like how reclaim the throne in what way,
To be the number one platform to play all video games.
Okay. Because to me, like even though everything is going to be multi-platform, right? For Xbox, pretty much going forward, right? I think that's fairly easy to speculate. If they pull off the next generation handheld in a way that's similar to Switch, that would be dope.
So that's another
That
funny
would be
thing.
really dope.
So
And so I can see them actually sell really well with something like
yeah,
that.
I could too. So again, Sarah Bond put out a video, and so did what's her name, Amanda Sue, or the CEO of AMD.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Whatever her name, or Lisa, or whatever.
I think it's Lisa.
They were both so ambiguous about their partnership, but one thing that came out of it is when Sarah basically said, and there was rumors just the week prior from Jez Gordon, so he's not always reliable, by the way. He goes, oh, they've canceled their dedicated handheld. And then all of a sudden Sarah Bond says...
Something in your hand, yeah.
Yeah, something. Like, she literally suggests that they're still working on a handheld.
Yeah.
And I'm like, A, Jez, you're stupid. You're normally 50% wrong all the time. And then the other thing is, I actually still found that interesting because I think if they do put out something dedicated in a couple of years, dude, I think that will sell gangbusters. Better than the Steam Deck, better than the
Oh,
ROG.
yeah, people would love that. And, I actually just realized this. Maybe this is common knowledge and I'm just dumb. Did you know...
Can't confirm you're dumb.
I am dumb, but did you know that if you buy Xbox digital games, you can cloud stream them to your devices?
Not all. So there's certain games. So for example, Assassin's Creed Shadows.
So that's the one I'm talking about. So I just bought the physical copy because it was $50 on Amazon, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I can stream this to my ROG. And I was like, oh, I can stream my Xbox to my RLG, but if I had bought the digital,
Yes.
I could have just cloud streamed it, and it
Yes.
would have probably worked really well.
Yeah, so it's not on Game Pass, but they're doing this thing like NVIDIA GeForce now. So essentially, the service basically takes your game and plays it on their back end on a Xbox Series console.
Yeah.
And I think they're using a mix of Series S and Series
Yeah.
X, I think.
So it's basically like a way to use Xbox Cloud Gaming for a game that's not on the service,
Yes.
if you own it.
Exactly. And then GeForce is great at that because they have very low latency. And what I like about NVIDIA GeForce, just as a comparison, it can access all your games on Steam and Epic and stream those games on their NVIDIA hardware and say, here you go, you pay a monthly subscription. So Xbox is getting into that now. Most people don't know about this.
Yeah,
I think
so
it's a great feature.
when I found that out, I was like, oh my God, this is like the first time I was thinking, should I have bought the digital game over the hard copy?
I'm starting
right?
to look.
And then I was like, oh my God, that's a killer feature.
So let's pivot a little bit here now. Microsoft, people have been bitching that like when Doom just came out and I think Indiana Jones, they were primarily digital. So even if you bought a physical game, there was just a digital code in there. It was just the disc with the license on it, right? They're doing this purposely because they realize most people are transitioning to digital on their platform. Also because when they released the Series S, that was a digital only thing. But now with all these cloud options and Play Anywhere, you can quickly cloud save everywhere and access your game on any platform without having the disc.
So I guess, you've probably done more cloud gaming than I have. I mean, I do still like physical copies, and it's nice to be able to resell them, even if you don't get that much money, right? Which is my struggle right now. I'm trying to resell some of my games. But man, like if the cloud streaming is really good, right? Then that's a killer feature. That's a game changer for me.
So look, I've always been about buying physical games. You know, the Switch, I always buy physical. PlayStation, I always buy physical. You know what's funny? I only want to buy digital now on Xbox, and it's because it's the way games are provided on the platform. So because I have this convenience now to play my ROG, my phone, or my Xbox digitally without having to insert a disc 3 different times, I want to buy digital.
Yeah.
They incentivize me to buy digitally. And on PlayStation, because I can't do that, or Switch, I can't do that, I want to buy physical.
Yeah, I get that. So I think that was a big eye-opener for me. Again, it's kind of like a stopgap because you can envision that when everything becomes Xbox Play Anywhere, then, you basically have the Windows copy and the Xbox copy anyways, so then you wouldn't really need the cloud stream, but then you would actually still be able to cloud stream if you wanted.
You would still want, so you would still want a cloud stream because if you don't want to download a 100 gig game, you're going to be, let's say you're at an airport and you quickly connect to hotspot. Or
like me, where I used 1.26 terabytes and I got charged for it.
Yeah, that, or you're at an airport and you go, hey, I just need a quick hotspot. I'm going to play for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Cloud stream your game.
So I say that because I'm excited for that future, because that actually feels like an evolution. Like we went to online gaming, and now if we can get to very identical online streaming versus home console playing, that's going to be nice. But again, it's kind of a strange thing to figure out because if they are almost 100% the same, then why do you need a console? Right?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just because some people still care that they like to play their game the highest fidelity output you could have, but that's going to become less and less prevalent over the years. So after this next generation of hardware that comes out, I think more people will just want to stream. My phone is so big, I'd rather just play cloud streaming on this while I'm laying in bed every night than play on my TV. I'll be honest with you, because I have a PlayStation, I can enjoy high fidelity games there, and I'd rather just play Xbox games on my phone. It hits the sweet spot, really. Yeah. So
if the streaming is pretty good.
Right? Yeah, the streaming is really good. I played it both on data and on Wi-Fi, and they're both roughly the same.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting stuff. Just thinking about any other gaming news for us to talk about. I think we've hit most of the major points.
Yeah.
I guess kind of a small thing. I just thought it was kind of weird. Sony was removing some games from their PlayStation catalog.
Yeah.
Which I just think it's a really weird move because we talked about, some of their PlayStation 3 games, that might be hard for them to run because it's on the cell architecture or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then Infamous Second Son is a PS4 game, so then that wouldn't be hard to run. But then they're like, okay, we want to divert people to newer games or other games, but who is not playing a new game because Infamous Second Son is on the service?
Especially if there's no other
Infamous. It's like...
And Resistance 2, you just brought Resistance 1, 2, and 3 to PlayStation Plus like literally like 6 months ago. And I'm like, great, I can kind of sort of play. It's not in the best way possible, but I can kind of play it. And I was going to literally play it. And then as I'm about to get to it, I realized they removed it. I'm like, what was the
Yeah, and
point?
I mean, I can get like, okay, new factor. We want it to be a rotating menu, so you always have, ooh, what am I
So
going to play
stupid.
now? But these are your own
Yeah,
games.
it's your own
You
game.
know, like most people want to pad out their service,
Yeah,
right? Like, what if all of a sudden Disney Plus was like, oh, we're going to do a rotating assembly
yeah,
of our different,
yeah,
Marvel movies,
yeah.
so you
So
guys always
stupid.
have something new. It's like,
It's like when Destiny did the whole vault thing, and they like locked up certain maps and vaults and raids and weapons, and then you could only play it every
yeah,
once in a while. Like, this is the dumbest thing ever.
it's like, and it really didn't make
Yeah.
sense to me.
With this, like, I'm upset because, like, okay, if you took down Resistance 1 and 2 and you go, oh, it's because we're remastering the game, I'd be like, thank God I can now play it
Yeah,
natively on the PlayStation 5. And I don't have to worry about
yeah.
streaming it because, again, the way it's being played now, you can't natively play it. It has to be emulated on PS3s and streamed to your
Yeah.
PS5. Stupid.
It's just and it's not like, okay, are they really going to remake Infamous Second Son? I love that game, but
They're
it
not.
wasn't that popular, right? So
Yeah.
they're not going to do
Yeah.
that. So
And
so
and Resistance hasn't been touched in 15 years.
yeah,
You know?
it's just
And I'm
such
like,
an
dude, and like here's the other thing that like pisses me off. It's like no rationale. Like if you're gonna do it. Tell me why though. Be straight up. Be like, oh, you know what? We barely had 100 people download Resistance 1 and 2 and play it. Okay, fine.
yeah.
Tell
So
me.
if it's like, okay, it costs more for us to keep this
Running, then
running than the amount of people who use it. Okay,
okay, it's
all
the
right,
same.
fine.
I'll still be
Who is
pissed.
gonna be like? Who's gonna
Yeah.
pull their hair out?
Yeah. I'll
They'll
be the minority. But
they'll be like, okay, I guess it's all of our fault because we didn't play it,
yeah.
right? But then it's just,
But don't just do it and then not say a word.
it's just odd because I don't see how this helps Sony in
Yeah.
any way other than, either someone has like OCD and just has to keep it like neat and organized,
Yeah.
or really it's for some reason just costing more
Yeah.
to keep it on the service than how much value it brings because
Yeah.
no one's playing.
Yeah. And I don't want to like
if there's like
speculate.
3 people playing,
Yeah, which it probably was the case. Like, don't get me wrong, on all three of those games, there's probably like a total of like 10 people playing.
Yeah.
Like, but again, I've been wanting to play Resistance so bad, but I want to play in the best way possible. So if you can at least remaster it, and fine, it might not sell well, but like that's a drop in the bucket for you. You can't just remake it because you're never gonna make a new Resistance game. Why not just remaster it for the 100,000 people that really want to play it? Like, I don't even understand that logic either.
Yeah.
Fine, that is a loss.
And I mean, I'm also surprised they don't just have some tech that can just easily super sample,
Yeah.
right? And like unlock frame rates.
Yeah, that one should
I
actually.
feel like investing in tech that could just do that easily
Yeah.
would really help you.
Like we have so many games right now locked to the PS3 ecosystem. Like, legitimately, this is funny. Resistance 1, 2, and 3, Infamous 1 and 2, Little Big Planet 1, 2, 3,
Killzones.
Killzones 1 and 2. And the funny part is they found a way to remaster God of War 3 and they brought it to the PS4. I'm like, you did that one 5 years ago, but you couldn't do these other ones?
I think that Uncharted 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, and Uncharted 1,
So
2,
like
and
the
3.
ones that were really like big hitters for them.
And they found a way. And it plays on PS4 and they're remastered.
Yeah.
And not even remastered, they just found a way to upscale it. Like, bro, you can't do it for these other ones? You can't tell me that the
Killzone 2 and 3 were pretty successful.
I know.
They were big games for that generation.
I would legit, like, you don't even have to bring the multiplayer back. Fine, fuck the multiplayer. We will just play the single player game. I just want to play the goddamn game. So yeah, that one is just a pet peeve of mine. It's like, it's annoying.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Okay.
Especially when there was rumors that the Studio Bend, what are they?
Yeah.
They were working on an open world Resistance game before that got canceled. I was like, bro, they pitched it. They at least pitched it. They would
have been great, but I guess finishing up some stuff, we can give some updates on things we've been watching and playing.
Yeah.
So I'll just talk kind of quickly about some games. So, I really played a ton, and, I think after that I took a little break. I beat Doom and I beat Claire. Now that I've had some time to digest Doom, I still think it's the worst for me out of the three, but still, it's a good game, right? So I'd probably give it like an 88, 87. Like, I really liked it. I think my biggest disappointment is really just the game's just too easy. If I'm playing on one of the hardest difficulties and it's easier than the older games on easier difficulties, like I just thought it didn't hit that same Doom niche, and like I know you can adjust some settings and things like that, but there's like a certain adrenaline rush that you get when you have a certain state of focus in Doom that's so unique to that game. And though I did get it from time to time in Doom: The Dark Ages, it was not the same as Eternal. Like Eternal was this high that you hit, like this flow state where you just felt like a god, like of gaming, and like so to me that was kind of my disappointment with the game. But I mean, after I finished beating it, I was like, oh man, I want to play this again. Like I had a blast, and some of the new gun additions were great. Like I know some people don't like the chain shot because I think it's weird that you're just like blasting a ball, like an iron ball into people and killing them. But I thought it was dope. Enemy variety was dope, so I really liked that game.
I heard you had a really nice controller to pair with it.
I did, yeah. You know, Arjun hooked me up with the Doom controller and then the Witcher 3 controller, which has been nice, yeah. So, but no, Doom was fun. I beat Claire, Obscure. I know you haven't really played it yet, so I won't really.
I heard it made a grown man cry.
I did tear up. So I didn't really tear up in the later parts of the game, which I think were supposed to be the really emotionally devastating parts. I mean, I guess this is kind of spoilers, but like early on in the game, there is some like really emotionally hitting scenes, and I was not expecting that. Right, so for me, because I was so caught off guard, like I was just like, oh my god, like this game can really be depressing, right? And so then after that, I was on guard. I was like, okay, like this is what they're gonna do to me, right? So I should expect that like sad shit's gonna happen, right? And so that's why I was fine after that. No, I think for me, I really like Claire. It's like definitely probably gonna win Game of the Year this year, or be up there if not Ghost of Yotai or Death Stranding.
Or Donkey Kong.
Or Donkey Kong. Honestly, Donkey Kong can win it too. Good point. But you know, I don't think I love it as much as everybody else. You know, although I really did enjoy like the turn based aspect of it. For me, like you know, parrying and dodging everyone just after a while made the game feel really repetitive because yeah, you're seeing a lot of the same enemies. Like there's good enemy variety, but you're still seeing a lot of the same enemies. But you have to get so focused on their attack patterns that even if I saw an enemy like 10 times, it felt like I was fighting that enemy like 100, right? Because like I had to really understand this attack pattern, and it was always the same attack patterns, right? Like they would have different moves, but you know, you remember the cadence, and you always have to press the same buttons, right, to like survive them, right? And so I think even though that was fun and it gave me kept me engaged in all the battles, after a while it did make the game feel a little repetitive, like from a gameplay standpoint, which is kind of ironic, right? It's a weird combo for me. I also think that like the scaling is a little off in the game, and I think intentionally so. I feel like some other JRPGs they're like really hard, and you really have to master the combat system in order to do good, and that's what keeps the game fresh because you're like, how the hell am I going to survive this? And the only way is you grind or you really master the combat system, right? But I felt like in this game, I could just either repeat battles and just get better at parrying, and then I was fine, right? Or I basically just found a cheese. And basically, I was playing the game, it was really hard, and I just changed up, you know, my gear and stuff like that. Oh my god, the game was so easy. I was just blasting through everything. Story's pretty good. You know, I actually think it's kind of similar in some ways to my first novel. So I was just like, that hit me a little emotionally because I was like, damn, I should have published this a long time ago. It's different enough, you know. But I say that because the whole idea of like what's real, what isn't real. I won't go into spoilers, but you know, it's about like imagination and reality and all that type of stuff. And I love that type of stuff, like Inception type of stuff. Like it's just totally my vibe, right? So I loved all that. I also think it's kind of like M Night Shyamalan, where like you have to wait for like a lot of the big reveals and twists later. And you know, I don't know if have you watched any M Night Shyamalan movies recently, but like it can be kind of it can be kind of like a mixed bag, you know, because it's like when the twist comes, it really delivers, but then a lot of the game is waiting for reveals and twists, right? As opposed to a game that's just like keeping you engaged right the whole time. But I think I'd give that game like probably a 9, you know, like 8.5, 9. It was a solid game.
Okay.
I still have to think about if I like Rebirth or Clair Obscur better. I think I might like Rebirth better.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I've been playing, and I think you've been still grinding out Ninja Gaiden Black.
Too. I beat another like 4 chapters. I finally got to play recently. Yeah, I mean,
where are you at now?
I'm on chapter like 13, so I'm at I just played that one ninja girl with the short purple hair.
Oh, I remember that level. I don't know
Yeah,
if I like that level as much. The gameplay was so different.
it's so different. Honestly, she's really OP.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
she was
She was
really
like a freaking
OP.
ninja, like an actual
Yeah, yeah.
ninja.
She's super fast, agile. She can like juggle you in the air really quickly.
For me, like it almost felt too fast compared to
Yeah,
what I was used to with Ryu. That I was just like, oh man.
yeah. It was, but that level was short. I mean, what I will give some credit for this game in the sense that all the bosses are super unique. I like
Yeah,
the
right. They're
bosses.
insane.
Like they're all like weird as hell.
Like, wasn't there one where it was like a bunch of skeletons?
Yeah, the skeletons. Like the one I just versed was like a massive like spider witch. Like
Oh man, wasn't there one where like your plane exploded and you crash
yeah,
landed and it was
dude,
like,
that was
what
hilarious.
was that? It was like a ice or I don't even know what the
There
heck it was.
was no, there was a water dragon. There was
It's just crazy
there
bosses.
was a level that you're legitimately on a plane. Yeah, and then you fight the spider clan dude, and then after you beat him, the plane just crashes
Crash
down.
land.
And as soon as it crashes, you verse another boss.
Boss that explodes or something like
Yeah,
that.
I'm like,
Man, that
dude.
game is so absurd.
So for those that probably played the game 10, 15 years ago on the hardest difficulty, which back then there was only like one difficulty I think in the day, it was probably super tough to get through every
It's super
boss.
hard. Yeah, so I beat Black, but I realized that the difficulty I was playing it was one notch lower than what I played it in as a kid.
Yeah, I'm playing on that, and it's honestly easy as hell.
Yeah.
It's just that I haven't had the time, but I'm almost done now, and I'm like breezing through it. So by the time I beat it, I think the next game I'm going to start is just Donkey Kong because that's out in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So
I was actually hoping Donkey Kong would come out a little earlier because then I could have played it like when I was on my trip. But
oh yeah, you could have brought it with you.
Yeah, but it's gonna come out like right when I'm on my tail end of my trip, so probably not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll say this. Like I said, I'm going to beat Ninja Gaiden. At first, when I played it, I thought it was like the sunk cost fallacy. I'm like, oh, I'm too far in it. I need to beat. Now I'm actually enjoying it again. I'm like, you know what? This is a strong.
Yeah, it takes you back, right?
Yeah.
To those old action adventure games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of those are the things that I've been playing. You know, going forward, I downloaded a whole bunch of like old games that I haven't been able to beat on Game Pass, so I'm probably gonna play them a little bit on the plane. Shadow of War, Lord of the Rings. I don't know why I never even got into that, but I'm playing it. It's pretty fun, honestly.
Yeah,
It kind of gives me like
decent game.
Assassin's Creed vibes.
And you're
a
gonna
little
really
bit.
like the story.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I love Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, oh man, this is Celebrimbor.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't
Yeah,
realize
Celebrimbor.
From
Yeah.
like, you know, Rings of Power.
I
So
know.
it's like, all right.
That's why I told you. I was telling you this last year to play, and
Oh.
you're like, no, I'm not. I'm like, dude, we're really literally watching the show.
I know.
I'm like,
as soon
why
as I
are you
saw that,
not-
I was like, oh no, I gotta play this. And I think it might be canon actually.
Yeah, it's canon.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I'm gonna play that. I played a little bit of Dishonored 1, and then I played some Spyro, Crash 4. You know, that was kind of nostalgic, but I don't think I'm gonna play them anymore.
Yeah,
I tried to play Xenoblade 3 because I was like, okay, finally I can play on my Switch 2. And it's for me, I just felt like the Switch 1 could not handle it. And
Yeah.
I really didn't like that.
It actually looks blurrier on the Switch too because
Yeah,
it
I
hasn't
know.
been optimized.
It looks so
yet.
blurry. And then as soon as I turned it on, I'm like, okay, frame rate is good. The screen size is great. But oh my god, I feel like I'm looking at water.
Yeah, I hope they announce optimizations. For
Yeah,
this
as soon
game.
as they do, then I'm gonna get back in the
Yeah.
game. But right now,
because
God, it's like 400p. It's so bad.
it's so bad. So Xenoblade 3 is actually out of all the games, it's the best one by most people's accounts. So I have the game. I just want to wait till they optimize it.
Yeah. So that's what I'm waiting on. But I'll probably play those a little bit. I guess I've actually probably been watching more TV lately. So I've been watching Murderbots. It's still showing. That show's pretty good, honestly. I think in the beginning it's a lot. Like their hook is just really fascinating, so it keeps you hooked the whole time. I think like near the kind of the middle to tail end of the season, it starts to kind of slow down, but it's pretty hilarious. I mean, I can just tell you a little bit about it, but basically, it's like a robot that now has the ability to kill humans. And he doesn't want to be around humans because he's afraid that the humans will realize that he can actually do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And all he wants to do is be distracted and be left alone so he can watch shitty dramas. So like space dramas. And all he wants to do is just binge. And so he just binges TV all the time. But because he's binging TV, it's kind of causing problems.
Does he even understand what he's watching? Like he's a robot.
He does, but it's just so. But it's just like talking about like his understanding of these human TV shows and how it compares to like the humans. And man, the humor in that is so well done because like he's a robot, and you'll talk about like how humans are like kind of creepy and sometimes robotic and kind of like sexually creepers, and he's just like, it's just such a funny perspective, bro. So I think after a while, like,
Especially with Skarsgård being the
yeah,
robot. Like,
and so I do think like the show kind of beats a dead horse a little bit because
Sure.
like that's really the gag to keep going, and afterwards you're like, okay, I've
Yeah.
seen this for a while, but it's still really funny, and I'm really enjoying it.
there's multiple books, so
Yeah. So then that's been good, and then I finally finished watching Lazarus.
Mhm.
So I have some thoughts.
sure that show was awful, but yeah, go ahead.
So I was disappointed. I don't think it's as bad as like IGN and other people like make it. Maybe I'm biased because I love Samurai Champloo and stuff like that. I would probably give it a 7, but probably it's like more like a maybe 6. But I probably think it's like a 7. It really shows you that like he really has the same kind of thing, you know, like it's his thing where basically he gets like he shows up a couple of really cool edgy characters right in the first few episodes, and then they all kind of come together, and then they have some adventures, and then in those adventures you get to know their backstory, and in the end the past comes back to haunt their present and puts them into a life or death situation.
Mhm.
And you don't know if they're all going to survive, and that's kind of what they did in Samurai Champloo. It's
Yeah.
what they did in Cowboy Bebop. It's basically what he did again, right? It's the
Okay.
same general premise, but I think the reason it doesn't work as well in this show is because like he has had this kind of like chill vibe, right? Where it's like chill, but also kind of like action-packed adventures because life is unpredictable, but our characters are badass. But here, there's a ticking time clock the whole time. So like his chill vibe kind of seems at odds with the fact that the world is gonna fucking all end,
Okay.
right? And so it just kind of feels disjointed in that way. So I think that made the tone kind of off. And then the second thing is the characters kind of feel a little cliche, and it's probably because we've seen characters like this a lot, even from him, right? Because it's like the third anime that has the same kind of general
Yeah.
structure. And then the third thing is I think it's too short. Like it's 13 episodes, and the other shows were like 26 episodes because they're like 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, like the show ended. I kind of like some of the stuff they did. It was kind of cool. It had some kind of interesting concepts and questions. But I was like, man, like if this was just 26 episodes and we actually had like more tension and we got to like explore some of the characters more, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But it's like, you have your episode that you know is going to go into the backstory of
Yeah.
the spy, right? And so they introduced the backstory of the spy in the beginning of the episode. So by the end of the episode it's going to get resolved, right?
Of
So
course.
it's kind of formulaic, right?
Formulaic, yeah.
So I think for that reason I was kind of disappointed, but I think overall you can tell it's him because like the music, some of the choices he makes with like the character and just like having like music playing in this in this scene, and like the way he edits it and has like a montage, I'm like, this is totally him, right? So I was happy from that perspective.
Bitch, you just gave shit to Hideo Kojima for trying to make similar games compared to Metal Gear, and he's like, he doesn't change shit up. And then you're like, oh, this guy's doing similar animes.
I agree with you. Like, I can see how that's kind of hypocritical, but that's because I really like Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop, and I don't like Metal Gear Solid and Death Stranding. If I loved Metal Gear Solid and Death Stranding as much as I loved Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, it'd be a totally different story, right? Yeah. So that's what I mean. They're just not for me, right? But like people who love it, they're probably looking at me and they're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Right? Yeah. So that's kind of like what I've been watching. I know we watched 28 Years Later, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting film. I mean, not as good as I thought it was. Like IGN gave it a 9 out of 10. It got really good.
Yeah, I was surprised they gave it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, the ending tone did not match the rest of the movie.
So weird.
So
I was just thinking about, what if they had just made that last scene like an end credit scene?
Yeah, I felt like it would have been better as an end credit.
Right, like that seemed like such a simple answer or solution.
Not to spoil anything, but I now understand why part of that scene was there. Did you realize that the kid in the beginning of the film, that was him?
Yeah, because of Cross.
Yeah, I didn't realize that at first.
So I got it. I instantly understood it, and they're like, okay, you're trying to have a juxtaposition because like this is life on the island, this is life outside the island, right? I get it, right? And it's like different types of crazy, right? I totally understand, but it was just such a dramatic tonal shift. I was like, this is terrible, right? Yeah. This ruins the show.
Especially because right before, up to that point, which I thought was the ending, about this kid
Yeah,
really accepting the fate of his mother after going on such a journey. I'm like, wow, I didn't expect this to come out of this film,
yeah.
right? And then
It
that,
was such a
and
beautiful like moment, and you're just like, oh
yeah,
my god! And then it's like, this is kind of spoilers, but it's like, and like danger feels so real. The
yeah,
zombies feel like they can kill any of us at any moment, and all of a sudden these guys come out, and you're like, what the hell?
that's so
These
dumb.
zombies are just jokes,
Yeah,
right? I really think that should have been an end credit scene,
yeah, I think so. You're right.
because you wanted to tease enough to make people want to watch the next movie, right? To show that there's still a story to be told, right? Which is the point of an end credit
Yeah.
scene, right?
And we know there's like this is like trilogy now.
Yeah.
So it's like I think overall this movie I'd give it like a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed some aspects of it. It felt like an indie film, but
Would you give it an 8 out of 10 if the end credit scene wasn't there?
yeah, maybe I would have.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
For
I
me,
really
it's an
feel like
eight
I
out
would
of ten
have.
without the end credit.
Yeah, let's say
Well, I
I'll just say
shouldn't
it
call
out
it
of
end
10.
credit scene, but you know what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, the
talking about.
finale, whatever ending, whatever. Yeah, I'll just give it an 8 out of 10 regardless. I'll just ignore that portion. But I think yeah, there was a beautiful message to be had there, and like this kid was brave enough to say like something's wrong with my mom. She's been done wrong, a little dirty by
Yeah,
now my dad, and also like accepting the fact that like no matter what, like everyone dies. But what was the message that the guy said? Like, okay, everyone will die, but everyone must love too, right? I think
yeah,
that was the messaging. I'm like, that was really beautiful. It's like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. So I think they executed that really well. I do think out of the 28 movies or whatever, I think it's the weakest one.
yeah,
I think 28 Days Later for me is the best one, just because, man, that was so revolutionary at the time.
yeah,
Like, I feel like up until then, I'd only seen movies where zombies were like slow
yeah,
and this, I was like, oh my god, these things are like insanely scary. Like, I don't think I was as scared of like Shaun of the Dead or
yeah.
Dawn of the Dead type
Mhm.
zombies, but these ones, I was like, oh my god,
These
these things
and
will destroy you.
the World War Z zombies.
Yeah, so the 28 Days Later came before it.
Yeah. So
So it was like, oh my god.
and funny enough, when we talked about it, when we watched 28 Years Later, we're like, this is Last of Us, and we're like, this also came before Last of Us.
Yeah.
Like, kind of funny that like
Yeah,
all
because
these things
28
took
Days is so
inspiration.
old, right?
Yeah.
So I really like that. I think 28 weeks later, just like the way you see the zombies like start messing everybody up again and like popping back up, that was really well done. I really like 28 weeks later. But yeah, I think 28 years later was a disappointment for me overall. I'm just happy that they were able to still tell a story
Yeah.
in that world.
I'll take what what came out of
And it wasn't like just complete trash,
Yeah.
But like to me, I keep 28 days later in such a high bar,
Yeah,
and
that's
weeks
fair.
later that it just didn't reach that.
Sometimes it's like again, it's the first film is like very unique, and he goes, "There's so much around this world that we can build upon." But then the next several films after is just like you're
Yeah.
straight up linearly telling a story, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, there's no that magic is gone."
Yeah, I get that. And really, I mean, I feel like I'm being the dead horse, but man, that scene really was just.
It
I
was
feel like
jarring.
that it's not often that one scene can make the whole movie feel like it's going down a point,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
felt like I was almost watching a different film.
yeah, exactly.
I was like, "What is this stupid thing?" But you know, they did confirm that Cillian Murphy will be introduced at the very end of the next film, so he'll barely be in the next film, and then he'll be a pivotal role in the third film. So the fact that they've already like planned out three is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think they were banking on the fact that it was going to be successful, and if you keep your budget small,
yeah. And I like the way they filmed some of the shots in that movie, the way they killed some of the zombies.
Yeah.
And stuff.
I mean, when you have time, dude, you got to check out 28 Days Later.
I'm going to,
You know,
for sure.
I won't set the bar too high because I know I do that. I set it high, then I set it low. Like, it's a good movie. Like, you'll enjoy it. I don't think you're going to be disappointed from it.
Next, like I want to talk a little bit about was Ballerina. Watch that. So this John Wick spinoff, for those that don't know, it takes place between movies 3 and 4. So Mr. Baba Yaga is in the film. Spoilers, but it's also in the trailers.
Yeah. I didn't realize that until after you had seen it. And I was like, oh, man, I didn't realize he's in it.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny the way he's in it, too. But first, I'll say this. Also, Mr. Sam Bridges Porter is also in the film.
What? I did not realize that.
Yeah, has a slightly important role, but he's like in the film for only 10 minutes at most. I think overall, as a spin-off, I don't think this was necessary. This was a cash grab. And the way I'm saying this is because specifically the fact that they had to bring Keanu back in this film, while it was like
carry it.
And no, he didn't carry it, but it was like a cool, fun little thing.
Mm.
But it was almost like if you had to bring him in for this, then you're telling me this can't stand on its own.
Yeah.
Like, even if it was a small role, I'm like, you didn't have to.
Yeah, well,
do
I feel like that universe, like, they really try, like, there was like that Continental TV show,
Yeah.
right, on NBC or
Yeah.
Peacock or whatever, and I don't think that did amazing numbers. It
Yeah.
didn't get great critical, ratings and stuff. I feel like John Wick, like that movie series, really works because of the action, but also Keanu.
Yeah.
Like he really is just
He
the
kind of just
perfect
makes
fit.
it. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it. Like I think that's something I
It's
was
a
thinking I
streaming.
would stream it.
It's a streaming thing, and even then, it's like what comes out of that film really isn't a whole. It doesn't add a whole lot to
Well,
the
I do have
lore.
to ask you this because this is the one thing I make fun of with John Wick, movie, and people who love it. Do they have the thing where he just grabs his coat and he just starts blocking bullets and he just is like pow pow pow? Because I always thought that was the funniest thing. I was like, what are these guys doing?
He
Like
does a
they
little.
literally just are taking like fabric from their suits, like they're gladiators.
And they hold it up as if the hand's not getting shot, but they're like pow pow, and I'm like, your
and
hand
it's
like.
just like the funniest thing.
Or the funniest part is when that scene in John Wick 4 where they're in the airport or wherever, and John is all the way on the first floor, and that one assassin's on the second floor, and they're both just shooting each other like, and no one sees the
I make fun of that. I make fun of that stuff all the time.
Like,
so the one thing is, John, like I do love the action, but that's one thing I always make fun of. Like the action is across the board so much better than other Hollywood movies, and like it deserves like a lot of the praise it gets. But like that's one of the reasons I don't love John Wick as much as other people, because that just is
unrealistic.
That's kind of jarring for me, because I'm just like, oh man, this is like the biggest badass ever, but like he's using his sweater and his suit.
I will say, I think there was a scene in here where he does that again.
Like, can't you just make like a whole like bodysuit out of their armor, and then someone will be unkillable?
Yeah. So he does do it, I think, once in this film again, and it's so stupid, but he actually does. He ends up using a different weapon of choice that he normally doesn't use. So I'm like, okay, interesting enough. And it's a very unique reason for why he's there, and I'm like, okay, interesting.
Okay.
But
I know I haven't watched it, so
yeah, I think overall this movie just wasn't needed. They've already confirmed they're working on a John Wick 5, and they also basically confirmed that Keanu is going to be in John Wick 5. Like. So I just didn't understand why. He already grieved the death of his wife at the end of the fourth one by getting his revenge.
Yeah,
I
think right now it's just a cash grab.
Yeah, it's a cash grab.
So there's that.
And then Squid Games season 3, which was the finale of Squid Games, which honestly just felt like Squid Games season 2.5. Like it was really just an extension.
It's super short, isn't it?
Super short, 6 episodes, all about an hour long. I like that. Honestly, I'll say this, like without giving too much away. Every episode hit really hard. So IGN gave it a 7 out of 10 because I think it was just so straight to the point in every episode. Like things happened and it's like realistic. And realistic not in the sense of the games, realistic in the sense of the choices that are made and the people that have to win and lose. You go, oh, that makes sense. It's pretty direct. It's obvious. There was no more twists and turns. So I think
it wasn't like convoluted anymore.
It was not convoluted anymore.
Those stories do get kind of convoluted.
Yeah. So IGN, I think, was upset for the fact that it wasn't convoluted because that's what gave it its uniqueness in the first 2 seasons, right? But now it's just straight to the point. It's like this person dies, this person lives, this person dies, and boom, boom.
So it just kind of felt like maybe from their eyes, like they just wanted to get the story done.
Yep, it's just a true ending. Like boom, 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 boom. This is it. But you know what? It hits so hard because while the people are living and dying and they're playing the games, it's still unique. Like when we watched the movie like Hunger Games, right? Or we watched Game of Thrones, there was something really crazy about the idea and that story and that world, the world building. Looking at this, I'm like, wow, at the end of the day, I'm like, this is still such a unique story that like I love seeing everyone's fate play out. Like I'm like, damn. Like they executed, So
do you feel like now that you finished the show, right? You were satisfied with the ending or the last season?
Man, that's such a good question. Am I satisfied with the ending? From where it started to where it ended, I would say, yeah, actually, I think I am. Like,
Are you happy they kept going past season 1? Because for me, like, I was satisfied with season 1, so I didn't really need more. With season 2, I was like, okay, this is good. Like, at least I'm getting more, but like, I didn't necessarily feel like it needed to be done.
Yeah, I would say here's where they screwed up. So I would say it could have ended at season 1 for sure. I think season 3 adds so much more context to season 2. The fact that they split it up was dumb. I think they should have filmed it straight and filmed all of it and dropped it all. Because now when you see season 2.5 or season 3, it's like, oh, like
I kind of hate how Netflix has been doing that. They did the same thing, like Stranger Things season 5, part 1 and part 2.
And I'll give you An absolute great comparison. Season 4. When they split in two, first half made no sense, was dumb. But when you saw the second half, you're like, wow, it tied everything together,
Yeah, but
right?
it's so annoying not seeing them together.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is exactly what happened with
Yeah.
Squid Games.
I just think this is like a Netflix strategy they're doing to like kind of keep viewership up, engagement up. So whatever.
Yeah. So all I'll say is like, could there be more Squid Games? Maybe. But like I said, I actually enjoyed the ending like a little, like quite a bit. Like,
So yeah, we're planning
somber.
we're planning on watching that in the plane, so that'll keep us busy.
You guys will like it, I think, for sure. And there's still tension. The fact that they built up the new cast of people to be very similar to season 1, I'm like, damn, like they did it twice. Like in my opinion, the fact that they found so many unique people in season 1, I'm like, they can't replicate this again. And honestly, they kind of did.
Yeah.
Again, with a new cast of characters.
Yeah, and I think because I know we've been going on for a while, but just one thing that I've had to learn as I've like written more is the power of the side character.
Yes,
right?
dude, this is all about the side character.
Because like, I think really good stories and really good writers, they will use their side characters in such a way that it like complements, fleshes out, challenges like your main character. And I know a lot of times, like when I'm writing, like the hardest part of like a novel is like to me the middle part, and I'm just like, oh my god, I know where I want to end, I know where I'm beginning, I'm really struggling. And now in hindsight, I realize it's like, okay, the beginning is easy because I love my setting, right? And I kind of like my main character, right? The ending is what I want to get to because it's a satisfying conclusion, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be epic, right? But the middle is so hard. And then the way I actually got better at it is because I was like, oh, if I introduce side characters, like a lot of times I've just been putting them in there to help my main character get from point A to B to C.
Yeah,
right?
you can't do like that.
But when you actually bring them in and they have a purpose and they engage with the main character, help that main character grow, challenge that main character, like that's fun because like the story between the antagonist and the protagonist is kind of more straightforward, right? Like one person is going to get a leg up, then the next person is going to get a leg up, the next person is going to get a leg up until finally one person succeeds.
Yeah,
right. But with the side character, like that dynamic is lateral, but it can go in so many different ways because like you can really get so many different ways either of those characters can change, right?
Yeah, I think
and then that can feed back into the fight between the protagonist and antagonist. So I think like a lot of people don't pay enough attention to their side characters.
I think that's what Squid Games did so well is that, especially in season 2 and 3, the side characters really help the main protagonist grow in ways and interact in ways that you would not have otherwise seen. Because we know that the main antagonist has been this guy that's been hosting these games all the time. But it was the side characters that made him grow and realize, like, throughout like the whole course of the games, like what he needed to do. He found his purpose.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, to expand on what you just said, the middle being so hard, the writer of this show straight up lost multiple teeth, writing this entire series. That's how stressed he was. So especially, I'm sure, figuring out season 2 and then season 3.
That's the hardest stuff, man. That's really what makes or breaks me in every story.
Yeah. So I understand. I mean, I don't understand it. I think people understand your pain in that. And I'll be honest, man, good side characters can really make a show, can make or break it. And that's why, like, if people are disappointed by this show, fair criticism, but I don't think I was disappointed by the end of this.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like if people are disappointed by the show, it might be because season 1 was like such a cultural iconic moment that it really set a high bar.
You set a high bar.
I mean, when you're saying that this is like the most streamed and successful show on Netflix,
even more than Stranger
Things, and this came up and it was a really niche idea. Like, who would ever think a niche idea like this could become such a cultural phenomenon and so beloved by so many people in so many different languages in so many different countries? Like, it's an insane moment.
And right? Everything clicked. Like,
and it's like lightning in a bottle, right? Like, how do you get that again?
Yeah. Not only did it serve as Stranger Things as the most watched show on Netflix, the actors killed it. So the writing was good, the acting was good, and it was unique. And it was in a different culture or a different language other than English.
And you got everyone to actually care to watch it.
Yeah. Like, to me, that was mind-blowing.
Just no one would have expected that.
And then to replicate some of it with season 2 and 3, I'm like, damn, like, as hard as that was, it reminds me of, like, Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 3. Like, they did replicate it a little bit after the fact with these new shows, like the Rings of Power and stuff, but it wasn't always, like...
Yeah, it's hard to, catch that same lightning in the bottle, right?
Yeah, so... Yeah, that's all I'll say about Squid Game today. I don't want to give it away.
Well, probably by the next podcast we have, I'll have watched it, so maybe we can get
Yeah,
like more into
hopefully.
specifics.
Because I really want to talk about it, man.
I know, man. This is how I felt after I finished watching you before you, and then I feel like you were just like struggling so much.
Yeah, that was a struggle, but like the ending was still good on that.
Yeah. So, okay, and I think it might take us a little bit longer. I know we're trying to get these out like every 2 weeks, but it might end up being more like 3 weeks because of summertime, and we're having some vacations and stuff like that. But hopefully that'll give us a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So I think that's it for today. So we'll see you guys next time.
all right, take care.
Take care.